Podcast with me, Mathew, and as always,
I'm Scott.
Hello, Scott. This week we are covering the 5-part Doctor Who story called, is it Daemons or Demons?
Demons.
But it has the AE, which I always assume sounds like A.
Oh yeah, it's supposed to be pronounced Demons, but the director of the episode was like, hey, what if we added an extra A? Or whatever that letter actually is, because it's kind of like an A and the E together.
I think it's a Latin, maybe Greek.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but the Demons episode, which is a third Doctor adventure, and in this part we will be covering the first 2 parts. Words are hard to describe, and this is a 2-part podcast. This first part, we're covering the first 2 parts of the story, if that makes any sense at all. Fuck's sake. Completely tongue-tied myself there.
Is this your first third Doctor experience?
It is. I've never had Jon Pertwee as a Doctor before. He's a lot of people's favourite Doctor, a lot of Classic Who's favourite Doctor.
He's my favourite Doctor.
Yeah.
So you better watch yourself.
I didn't hate him, but in these first 2 parts, he doesn't do an awful lot, does he?
No, not quite.
We'll talk about his Doctor once we get into a bit more of the episode. But this episode first aired on the 22nd of May, 1971, which was a Saturday of all days.
Unbelievable.
Okay, right. Again, Scott, let's see your U.S. presidential history. Who was the U.S. president in 1971?
Was it still Nixon?
It was indeed still Nixon. But the hard one, the Nixon's easy. You know, he's famous, he's parodied, he's whatever. The hard one. Who was the UK Prime Minister?
God, I couldn't fucking tell you.
Yeah, nope, neither could I. It was Edward Heath.
Never heard of him.
He was a Tory. That's all I know. I didn't bother to look him up.
Oh, wonderful. My favorite kind.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Yum, yum, yum. This is the bit I actually did a little bit of research on this next upcoming bit. And by research, I mean I went on Wikipedia. Do you know what the number 1 film of this week in 1971 was?
I can't even think of a movie like before Star Wars or Alien, so tell me. Shoot.
There were no movies before Star Wars or Alien, that's why. The film was called Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song. That was it. I just copied the name twice, so I confused myself. Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, and badass is spelled with about 7 S's.
I only know that movie based off of The Simpsons again.
You know the movie? No way.
No, I don't know the movie, just The Simpsons episode. It was the 100th episode, Sweet Seymour Skinner's Badass Song.
Amazing.
It's the one where he gets fired from the school.
I don't think I've seen that episode. I might have. It doesn't ring a bell.
Dude, you probably must have.
I feel like he's been fired from the school so many times.
It's the one where the dog falls off the vent.
My mind is drawing a blank. I've probably seen it. I'll watch the episode and be like, oh, yeah. But Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song was a 1971 American blaxploitation film that was written, co-produced, scored, edited, directed, and starring a man known as Melvin Van Peebles, which is quite the laundry list of jobs to do on
What
a
a
film.
name. What a name.
Yeah, a good name, isn't it? Van Peebles developed the film after he was offered a 3-picture contract with Columbia Pictures, and no studio would actually finance the film, so he funded it himself, shot it independently over just 19 days, did all his own stunts, and appeared in several sex scenes. And this was the part I thought was interesting. Some of those sex scenes were apparently unsimulated, which means if you don't know what that means, it means that he just straight up had sex.
And this
Which
was
is
a
pretty
number
great.
one. This was a number one movie in America.
Yeah, this was the
How?
number one movie.
That's insane.
He received a $50,000 loan from everybody's favorite rapist piece of shit, Bill Cosby, to finish the film. And the film contains a lot of fast-paced montages and jump cuts, which apparently were unique features in American cinema at the time. So it really helped influence that style of filmmaking. However, the film got censored in some markets and received mixed reviews. Although, according to Wikipedia, it left a lasting impression on American cinema. Which, if it shows up in The Simpsons, it must have.
I don't think the actual movie was parodied, just the title, but still.
It's quite the interesting sounding film, isn't it?
Sounds it, yeah.
But do you know what the number one single in the UK was?
Haven't got a clue.
Because it's a song that I don't think I'm familiar with. I might be. In the UK, the number one single was "Knock 3 Times" by a band called Dawn.
Let me look this up. Ooh, a very 70s album cover. Like, the guy with a mustache. Just...
Hey, there's nothing wrong with mustaches. They're gonna make a
No,
comeback. What are some of these sweet lyrics, baby?
it's quite funky.
A lot of 70s music actually is, especially pop music in the 70s.
Hey girl, what you doing down there? Down where?
Oh, okay.
Dancing alone every night. Dancing.
Dancing alone every night.
Mm. Okay.
But, yeah, it's interesting to look back at lyrics back then where they're full of innuendo, and then you look at whatever the song was from a few weeks ago, where it was what the fuck were the lyrics? Fucking a bunch of expletives and sexually explicit things. Fucking
Yeah.
It's interesting how the veil slipped from music, isn't it?
Yes.
The number one album was "Sticky Fingers" by the Rolling Stones. Ever listen to this album?
I might have heard a few songs from it.
I've not listened to a lot of Rolling Stones. The most I know about Rolling Stones is they have that one T-shirt that seemingly everybody has had at some point, with the big old tongue, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm more of a song man than an album man. No, I don't recognize any of the songs from this
My
album.
music taste is pretty obscure, so. But yeah, that was the number one album at the time. But that brings me to the end of the tidbits section that I have. Really, the most interesting thing for me was Sweet Sweetback's badass song. It was just interesting to dive into that film.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I have for December 22nd, 1971. There was an earthquake in Turkey as well, but again, I didn't really want to talk about all the death that happened all the time.
When is there not a bad thing going on, Phil?
Yeah, it sucks. It's like every time I go on, what happened on this day? It's like, oh, this was a Saturday, and the sign's Aquarius, and 15,000 people died, and this was the number one song on the chart. It's like, what?
Also, it's insane how long it's been. 50 years almost. Well, over 50 years now.
This episode of Doctor Who is 6 years older than my mum.
Damn. It's 3 years younger than my mum, so my mum's old.
My mum just had kids very young. But yeah, that's all I have for the tidbit section. Okay, so are you ready to give us the writer's deep dive, Scott, for this episode of Demon Boys? That was the working title, I'm pretty sure.
Well, the credited writer for this episode is Guy Leopold, who doesn't actually exist. It's a pen name for two writers named Barry Letts and Robert Sloman. Now, Barry Letts is very important to this era of Doctor Who because he was a showrunner, essentially. He was more of a, back in those days, was more of a producer kind of role rather than writing episodes every year, but he oversaw most of the third Doctor era. The reason for a pen name is because at that time, producers weren't allowed to write for their own shows because of the Writers' Union being really against that.
Ooh.
And his co-writer Robert Sloman didn't want to be the sole credit because he was already in a big writing partnership with somebody else, and he thought, hey, I don't want people in the press thinking we split up or anything, so they came up with the name Guy Leopold.
So what you're saying is this episode was written by a bunch of liars.
So you're a liar, you're a phony. So together, the both of them wrote for 4 stories: The Demons, The Time Monster, The Green Death, and Planet of the Spiders. Barry Lett's first exposure to this show was by directing, what was the episode called?
Oh, that one. I'm a big fan of that one.
His first exposure for the show was directing The Enemy of the World, which was a really complicated episode at the time. If you don't know the plot, it's a Patrick Troughton episode from 1967. So Patrick Troughton finds out that there is an evil dictator that looks exactly like him. So the complicated part of this episode is that we had to film scenes where Patrick Troughton is interacting with Patrick Troughton. And this is television technology
In the
55
60s.
years ago.
Yeah. The 60s.
So it's a crazy episode to be your first director on.
On Doctor Who as well. It's like they didn't even have the budget to do something like that.
It actually looks really, really solid. It's a really solid episode. If you ever have time to watch it, it's really good.
We should cover it on the podcast in like 15 billion episodes time. We have so many to get through.
The Enemy of the World actually went missing. It's one of those missing episodes that only was recovered in 2013. So the true scope of the episode wasn't truly discovered until recently. And yeah, it's a really solid episode.
The missing episodes of Doctor Who is a really interesting part of classic Who, that I think, and it's a big shame how many actually ended up getting, disused, throwaway and stuff, because they didn't care about archiving it back then. It's a real shame.
It's amazing how much actually was found afterwards. Like, I would say they threw away like 260 episodes altogether, and now there's only 97 missing.
Yeah, they animate some of them now, don't they?
Yeah, they've animated a lot of them now. They're doing Evil of the Daleks soon, I believe. So, which is a classic episode.
Yeah, very, 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 very good that they're at least bringing them back. It would be a shame if they went, oh, they're gone forever.
So Barry Letts was the producer for all 5 seasons of Pertwee's run. I can't speak today.
It's okay, it's only a podcast. You're fucking talking.
But yeah, he was the producer for all 5 seasons. And his biggest change was in rehearsal times. Like, back in the 60s, we would only have 4 days to rehearse, and then the Friday and the Saturday would be days to shoot. Like, a full 25-minute story shot in 2 days and rehearsed in 4 days, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah, that's stress on a whole other level.
Like, on the Fridays and the Saturdays, when we were filming, it was the first day for the camera crew and the lighting crew. It was their first day for the episode, so we had to improvise a lot of shit. It sounds really stressful.
It does sound stressful. I'm sure they had a bit of fun with it, to fuck around. But yeah, it's such a fucking high pressure environment to be in, you know.
But Barry Lett's idea was to basically rehearse for an episode for over 2 weeks and record two back to back, making life a lot easier for the cast and crew. And it really shows, I think, this episode especially, where they spent 2 weeks on location filming, which is very rare for classic Doctor Who. So one of his last responsibilities before leaving as a showrunner or producer was casting the Fourth Doctor as well, which is probably the most iconic casting on all of television history.
That's a good thing to have on your resume, isn't it? You're in charge for casting probably the most iconic Doctor still to this day.
So he returned in 1980 for Tom Baker's last season, and this was John Nathan Turner's first season. If you remember last week, we spoke about John Nathan Turner being very difficult to work with. He was very
to deal with, yeah.
He was very inexperienced as well, so Barry Letts had to come on board just to help him out and make sure he knew how to run the show and all that. So he was responsible for writing two 1990s radio plays starring Jon Pertwee, Liz Sladen and Nicholas Courtney, which was basically Big Finish before Big Finish. Which
now if we can find those radio plays,
I think they're probably on CD somewhere.
On like
I believe
tape,
so, yeah.
Like.
But yeah, we would have done more, but then Jon Pertwee sadly passed away in 1996, so we only got to do 2 of them, which is unfortunate. But then 3 years later, coincidentally, Big Finish got the rights to Doctor Who, and they've been doing a lot over the last...
Pumping out content every fucking chance they get.
There's been a lot of them, isn't there?
It's a shame that Jon Pertwee... Oh god, Jon Pertwee died so long ago now. Nice.
Yeah, he died. He died only a few days before the TV movie, which...
Yeah, that sucks.
Which we're going to cover next week. Well, not next week, but in 3 weeks.
Scheduling's weird.
So the reason why we're doing this episode is to remember it's the 50th anniversary of the Master. In this episode, he's played by Roger Delgado. And now this is your first exposure to Roger Delgado as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. This is my first... I mean, like, I've seen, like, it's like my first exposure to Jon Pertwee. In the sense, it's my first time sitting down and watching a full episode. I've, seen clips and, like, things from, like, interviews and stuff like that. And whenever they do flashbacks or whatever. So I was familiar with this version of the Master. As well as I was kind of familiar with this version of the Doctor. But in these first 2 parts, it's the same with Jon Pertwee as the Doctor. I really don't think they really do much in the way of anything, other than the Master's really into Satan. And also, he's perhaps one of the most evil-looking men I've ever seen. What a fucking chin that guy has.
Oh yeah, he's quoted as saying, he loves playing villains. I am chosen by directors to play wicked men because I have a beard, a menacing chin, and piercing eyes.
Yep.
And he is perfect as the Master. He's my favourite Master. He's just absolutely perfect.
I'm sure I'll see later on in some of the later episodes him being very good. But yes, I'm not discouraged by him as the Master yet. It's very interesting as well seeing the classic Who version of the Master, where he's much more... like TV show villain almost. Like we see him the first time we see him, which we'll get into in the episode, he's dressed up as a reverend, and it's like, oh dun dun dun, it's the Master all along. But like, whereas in like today's modern Who, the Master is very loud, very bombastic, and trying to match the Doctor, especially with this newest Master.
It's probably why I'm not a big fan of the newest Masters. I think he's a bit too manic and just all over the place. Whereas this Master, he's more in control of himself. He's more in control of the situation. He's really more in control.
Much more reserved.
Yeah. But anyway, Roger Delgado's full name was... Get ready for this?
I'm ready.
Roger Caesar Marius Bernard de Delgado Torres Castillo Roberto.
It's like a Picasso. What a name.
But yeah, he was born in 1918 and actually, unfortunately, died in 1973, only 2 years after this.
Damn,
He
he
was
died
only
pretty young.
Yeah, he was only 55. He died in a car crash in Turkey when he was recording another show or movie. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, he's unfortunately missed. Yeah,
That's a real shame. That's a real tragedy there.
they wouldn't do anything with Master after season 10 until like season 14, so we didn't know what to do with him for like 4 years. And his death was actually one of the reasons why Pertwee wanted to leave the show the year after. Like, after 5 seasons, he was like, I can't do this with... Like, him and Delgado were, like, best friends.
Mm.
And he just couldn't carry on without him, which is
Oh, that's
unfortunate.
tragic. That's so tragic. So was like, again, I'm really unfamiliar with this whole era of Doctor Who compared to what I am with New Who. Was the Master in this much more of a recurring villain for the Doctor? Because I know they all take place on Earth. So is the Master also chilling on Earth all the time?
Oh yeah, in season 8, the Master appears in every single story. Like, 21 out of the 25 episodes he was in. He was a main character, basically.
He was the that's interesting. I'm trying to like there's that reminds me of a show, but like I can't remember what the show would be, where it's the same villain. It's like a kid show almost, where
Yeah.
every week fucking the Doctor's Perry the Platypus dealing with Doofenshmirtz. Like
Phineas and Ferb. But yeah, the Master after season 8, he became more of a recurring character. In season 9, he only appeared for 2 episodes. Season 10, he only unfortunately appeared for one. I mean, it was his final one, which is a real shame because I would have liked to see him go on for much, much longer.
yeah, real shame.
But yeah, back to the Demons. The Demons was inspired by a 1934 novel, The Devil Rides Out, which was later turned into a 1968 film with Christopher Lee, who investigates his friend's strange actions and finds he's involved in the occult. This is a movie I've actually seen without realizing the connection. It's a Hammer horror movie. Have you ever seen a Hammer horror movie?
If you remind me what it is, it doesn't sound familiar though.
It's a company. They do Frankenstein and
Like the originals.
yeah, like the 1950s movies. They often cast Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing and all those kind of. There's heaps of movies, but
There
I'm
is
not.
a heap of movies.
Yes, I'm not a big fan of that era of horror movies, and this movie wasn't that great. I think this episode is better than the movie, honestly.
Yeah, no, I've not really seen much Hammer films as iconic as some of them seem to be. I'm not very well versed in this era of horror film specifically.
But that's it for the history section.
Hey, very very interesting stuff. A lot of tragic stuff.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but
Hey, most of the cast of this episode is dead.
yeah,
the woman who plays Hawthorne, which is the White Witch in this episode, she died 2 months ago.
Oh really?
Or
Jesus.
actually last month.
Oh,
Which is yeah.
that's upsetting.
But she was 91, which is a fair age to go at.
Long life. She was probably my least favorite character in this, but we'll get into that.
But she actually got to play the character a couple more times. Sorry, back to history here, because I forgot to mention this. So you'll know that Doctor Who has a lot of weird unofficial spin-offs, right?
Yeah.
So this company, Real Time, which is famous for introducing the character of Kate Lethbridge-Stewart, who actually is canon now in the actual show. She started appearing in the 50th anniversary, and she kept on popping up during Capaldi's era.
Yep.
Which is insane. What a fan fiction character would just pop up in the actual show.
Gotta love Moffat, don't you?
But there's actually like 3 unofficial spin-offs from Real Time. The first one is Daemons Rising from 2004, which involves Kate Lethbridge Stewart trying to protect the planet from a demon. And we have The White Witch of Devil's End in 2017, which is like an anthology series, which has the woman who plays Hawthorne just reciting monologues, which isn't really my cup of tea.
Yeah.
But she just basically sitting on her chair and just telling stories. It doesn't look great.
I'm sure they had fun making it.
And there's one as recent as last year, but it hasn't actually come out yet. It's called Anomaly, and Kate is back, and Sophie Aldridge is also in it, but it's just not released yet, and I don't know what's happened to it.
So strange, the little weird, like, rabbit hole things that happen from Doctor Who, isn't it? It's like an offshoot of an offshoot.
I do love how whenever a character plays a role, but they're always remembered in the Doctor Who fandom. We're always getting to expand the character or whatever.
Yeah, it's, on the surface you look at Doctor Who and you're like, oh, it's a somewhat campy sci-fi show. There's not too much to it. They travel around in a box, whatever. And then you go into it and it's like, every character has like 3 pages on Doctor Who Wikipedia. Like, people are really passionate about this show, some to a fault. Yeah, it's a sort of fandom you don't get with every show. It's really only certain special ones that can get that level of dedication.
Yeah, it's insane how much the actors are still involved. Like, there's just companions directing Big Finish stories, and everybody comes back at some. It's just massive, really. So this episode was shot in the village of Aldburn, which is a really interesting shoot because on this shoot, every villager got the chance to watch the episode be produced, which is not something you get these days, really.
Yeah, the only thing that reminded me of is right now in Glasgow, in the city centre of Glasgow, they've made it look like 1950s America because they're shooting Indiana Jones.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I saw some like fucking videos of people around Glasgow taking sneaky videos of because it's a closed set. Obviously, they're not letting people up to it.
But on this episode of Doctor Who, you would never get this again. Like, people became extras. People got to film the actors recording the episode. Like, you would never see that. Like, kids got to ride around on the Doctor's car and sign autographs, and
it sounds like it was a lot of fun. Yeah, it would never happen today.
And the village still actually celebrates this episode being recorded. Next month, we're doing a reunion special. We're bringing in the surviving cast members and other cast members just to remember the filming of this episode in this village.
Oh, that's cute.
And they've actually done so much, like, reunion specials. Like, this is probably like their 10th or 15th or something.
It's it makes me kind of jealous. I wish the village I grew up in was that into Doctor Who.
But I do love how it's like Doctor Who is this kind of like communal experience. Like, everybody shares stories about filming in this small village. Like, these days you would get NDAs and just you would never be able to experience this again because of the internet.
What it makes me really happy about hearing that is it's a story from a film set that isn't just incredibly tragic and sad and depressing.
Yeah, especially, yeah.
It's really refreshing to be like, yeah, and everyone had a good time. That never happens anymore.
Yeah, that's, unfortunate, but yeah.
Shall we get into the episode?
Absolutely. Sorry for diverting us for like half an hour, but
it's fine. We're like bang on 30 minutes and we're into the episode. That's pretty impressive. Although I don't know if it'll be like that in the edit, but in recording it like hit the 30-minute mark and we're getting into the episode, which is like German train precision. But The episode, which is season 8, episode 21, if anybody is curious, begins like all good Doctor Who does with the Doctor Who theme. What do you think of this theme?
I love it. Like, you can tell they just got color for the first time. Like, every color is in this intro.
It does have every color in this intro. That is entirely true. Though I really like the cool psychedelic colors that they're playing around with. A big fan of the actual song itself. It sounds very familiar to New Who's intros, more so
Yeah.
than some of the other ones, I think.
I just love the transition into Jon Pertwee's face. It's
That's what I was about to say. The only thing that kind of freaks me out is the way the colors diverge. He looks like a monster until
But you
he
thought
comes out as a human
you
being.
thought the same thing about Peter Davison's face last week.
Yeah. There's something unnerving about them staring at you through the camera. But
I want to see it
we-
back.
the colors turn into Jon Pertwee. The one thing, right? Jon Pertwee's
Yeah.
looking at the camera. He's smiling. It's charming. It's just a slightly bit unnerving. It would be absolutely terrifying if he did what Peter Davidson did and that face fucking came at you. Like, that would be terrifying if that happened. I'm glad it's a static image. But we see the Doctor Who logo very, very briefly. It actually shows up in the intro. It like fades in and out in like the matter of a few seconds. What do you think of this logo? Since we talked about the logos a bit last week.
It's the logo that was splattered on every like merchandisable thing up until like Jodie's era. So it's an iconic logo.
It's it's clean. It's simple. It's easy to read. It's not overdone. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. And it doesn't look like a signature either. It's that signature logo is still the worst thing ever.
It's pretty ugly, and it's not in a weird long spaceship thing. Still don't know what that
Yeah.
is. Still don't know what that is.
Some kind of fireball kind of thing.
The episode opens with thunder crashing, as the closed captions would like to say, onto a dark village night. I assume the guy comes out of a pub in the rain. I'm guessing it was the pub. Because we see him with his wee dog, his wee dog, as as they leave the rainstorm.
Yeah, I think it is a pub, yeah. Or a hotel of some sort, maybe. But yeah, I think this opening looks really solid. Like, we obviously had to invent all the rain and the thunder and the lightning.
Yeah, that was my only thing that I had, because I liked, because at the opening you see like all the rain pouring down. It's got some like nature documentary close-ups of frogs and like cats and stuff like that. It has this weird one. I think it's supposed to be a rat, but it just looks like a sock getting pulled by a string.
Oh yeah, that's actually a hat getting pulled by a string.
It was a
Mathew.
hat. The
So, yeah,
classic wild hats of Britain.
But yeah, it's supposed to be some kind of monster just roaming around.
Oh, that's supposed to be the monster.
Apparently, according one of the producers on the episode was a woman, and the director was like, "We need some kind of monster just running past the screen." Oh, I know, your hat. And it's just a big furry hat running across the screen.
We need something really horrible and terrifying to go across the screen. Oh, your hat's fucking hideous. Let's get that.
But this is like 1971, and it's something that goes across screen for like 2 seconds. Nobody in 1971 would have noticed. They
No.
didn't foresee people watching this episode ever again.
Yeah, I just assumed it was a rat, like a fake rat that they were. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. It being a monster changes things slightly, but yeah, that gets pulled across the screen. We see the pub. What's the name of the pub? It's like it's got a picture of the bar. The bar sign has like a I'm gonna say camel's leg.
I think it's like a devil's leg.
Oh
like
yeah, like
like a hoof.
Goat's hoof thing.
Yeah.
That would make sense because the town's called like Devil Lives Here or something.
Yeah, Devil's End.
Yeah.
A bit on the nose, I think, but you know.
But the man leaves the pub, as I said. He wishes Frank a lovely good night, and Frank wishes Jim a lovely good night back. It's very charming. They blow each other kisses. They step out into the rain, and this was the only issue I had with this entire scene, besides the hat monster sock thing. And that was, and obviously it's budget. It's nitpicking to the nth degree. Is the rain's only coming from one side?
Fair enough, yeah.
It's only raining on the left and blowing into the right. You can see the right hand side's perfectly, and it's the rain machine with a wind machine at like 1971's budget. They're doing their best. It's fine. It's acceptable. It's like, oh, that's a thing.
Yeah, you understand what's going on screen, and it looks fine enough.
It doesn't take you out of it. I'm just being a dick, really. But we see the man walking his dog. Do we ever see the dog again?
I think the dog just runs away somewhere. I don't know where.
Yeah, per dog. I hope he comes. I hope he shows up in Jodie's new season. It's the deepest cut of Doctor Who ever.
I smell a Big Finish spin-off.
Yes.
It's just 2 hours of barking.
Get them on the phone right now. But the man's walking. He drops his dog, or the dog runs away. A bit of both, really. In the storm, the dog goes running off into the graveyard. Which, again, this was also confusing. They've obviously done it because it's old cameras. They need light. They're shooting in the dark. There's just a mysterious light behind the gravestones. Don't know what's causing that light, but it's there.
They also do it. It's probably like a porch light kind of thing. I don't know.
I think it's just there for the shot, but
yeah.
Man goes chasing his dog up into the graveyard, looking for him. We see wee old doggy barking. Oh wait, the dog dies.
Oh yeah, it does. Oh no.
The dog yelps off camera.
And the old man has a heart attack.
Yeah. Weirdly, it cuts to an owl when the dog dies. Did the owl kill the dog? We see the man having a heart attack. What did you think about the man having a heart attack?
I think it sets up an interesting mystery. Like, what caused him to have so much fear that he died of a heart attack?
What caused him to have so much fear that he saw the cameraman in front of him? Because he looks dead into the lens of the camera. That took me out of it entirely when it happened. Like,
to be fair, the camera is like 6 feet wide. That's how big the cameras were back then.
I know, but like it's like he has the heart attack and then he looks up at the camera like, "Oh no, audience, I'm dying. It's shocking." Which I kind of get in the cheesy old TV way of, "Ooh, oh no." But it was so funny to me. It was so funny.
It might be just first person's perspective, maybe.
Maybe, yeah, maybe it is. That could be. That's a good explanation there.
But then they only had probably 2 hours to shoot this, and they didn't get the time to be able to communicate this effectively. So that's probably why. But it's still a pretty good opening.
Yeah, it's fine. What I find interesting, this is just a thought I had in modern day Doctor Who. I think that this scene would be before the opening credits.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's very interesting how that's switched here. It's just pacing and editing and learning new techniques and stuff. But it's just a thing that I just noticed right now. This would be the cold open.
Yeah, British TV would never have a cold open before the. I don't know when we started with cold opens. Probably the 90s.
Yeah, I wonder what was the first show to do a cold open.
Google it. But I know America did that for a long, long time.
Yeah, I'm going to specify UK. Oh, interesting. It's not UK. It's US. The first show to do a cold open, it was the 60s. It was Star Trek.
Damn.
That's great. I love Star Trek. Don't know what it would be in the UK though. Let's see. Let's see if I can quickly find out.
Yeah, that's annoying because there's nothing about the UK.
Yeah, the only one that I can find is the New Avengers in 1976 and the Professionals in 1977 both used cold opens. Oh, apparently
Yes.
soap operas, so like your EastEnders and stuff, used cold opens in the 60s and 70s as well.
Hmm.
It was all thanks to this one producer called Lou Grade, who was trying to break in UK shows to the US market by taking a more US style to UK shows.
But yeah, that would have been like 5 years after this episode. I know
Mm.
in the UK, for a long time, they would just move the cold open until after the intro. Like, do you remember What's New Scooby Doo? Like, that used to have cold opens, but then, like, when the BBC started airing it, they moved the theme song to the very beginning.
Hmm.
So, as a, yeah, it's
It must be
it's
one
weird.
of those like weird unwritten like British TV rules that they came up with 80 odd years ago and decided that everyone has to follow them, otherwise it's not proper TV.
Like, I think the reason for the cold open in America is because, like, they air 5 minutes of a program and then they cut directly to commercial break in
They
America,
have
at least.
they have 1,000 adverts, yeah.
So I guess it's a way to just entice viewers in before the next advert break.
Having 5 minutes in an advert is fucking insane.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. Yeah. I like a cold open though. I think it sets up like besides like that advertising whatever bullshit. I like the mystery it sets up, and then you're like, ooh, I'm in, and then the theme song kicks in, and you're like, ooh.
Yeah, like it always leads in a good cliffhanger as well. Like, how is the Doctor going to save the day here and shit
It
like that?
hooks you in the episode. But that was a big ass fucking divergent. Anyway, the man dies, and we cut immediately to the Wicked Witch of Devil's Town. Nah, she's lovely.
Yeah, Hawthorne.
Hawthorne, as she's chatting to the Doctor, but not the Doctor you're thinking of. Ha ha ha! Just a regular Doctor.
Oh,
She's arguing with this man that the guy that we just saw, Jim, I believe his name was, died of fright. My one question here: how does she have access to the body, or maybe she discovered the body?
yeah. I think she discovered the body.
What's she doing hanging out in a graveyard? She killed him. The
Well, she's a spooky witch lady. What don't we do?
but the doctor's adamant that he had a heart attack and that's all there is to it, and she's like, no, he was so scared he died. That's the reasonable explanation here. She says this a lot of times when she's arguing with not just this doctor, but she says it quite a few times in this episode. As she's arguing with the doctor's like, his face was like lips protruded back and his eyes open wide like he was scared, but it's not uncommon to see that in a heart attack. And she's like, the signs are all there for everyone to see. I cast the runes only this morning. It hurts my brain, and is magic real?
I
In the
don't
Doctor
think
Who.
so. This episode. Well, we've only seen the first two parts, so, but this story proves that it's definitely not magic. So I guess she just believes in magic, and she thinks what she's doing is magic, even though there's like external alien forces.
It's all correlation, not cause.
Yes,
Yeah.
but yeah, do you believe in magic in
No, I'm
real
not.
life?
No. No, I don't. Of course not. Do you
I have a
believe in
friend-
magic?
I don't, but I have a friend who does.
I have a friend who also believes in magic.
But each to their own.
Yeah, it doesn't affect me. It doesn't compute with my brain, so I just can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah, I think alien life is more plausible than magic.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like I like the thing with alien life for me is I won't say that I 100% believe in aliens, because I won't believe in anything without actual physical evidence, but I find the possibility of aliens to be almost like fucking insane that they wouldn't exist if you look
Yeah.
at the scale of our galaxy, or like our solar system in our galaxy and the size of our galaxy, and then realize that there is 100 billion other galaxies like that in an infinitely expanding universe. And you go, oh yeah, cool, there's definitely at least one other dude out there. Like,
Yeah. Like we haven't discovered most of the universe, and well, yet we've discovered most of Earth, and it's concludable that magic really doesn't exist.
yeah,
But because the universe hasn't been explored, we
the
can't come to any conclusions really.
the best saying that I've heard about it, and saying that you fervently don't believe that aliens are real, is like the amount of space we've explored is equivalent to like dunking a glass in the ocean, pulling it up and being like, "Oh, there's no whales in the ocean."
That's a good one, yeah.
But the episode continues. The doctor leaves, not the doctor, but the doctor, not the doc. He leaves to say like he's got work to do, and the lady Hawthorne was her name.
Yeah.
Where do I know the name Hawthorne from? What's that from?
I could not tell you. Let's Google.
Oh, that's in my head. But as you Google, I'll continue explaining. She leaves us with a little bit of plot, as she's like, if this person opens up, I forget their name, I'm terrible with names. If this person opens up the hatch in the thingamajiggy, they'll doom us all. This is only the beginning. This is part 1 of 5. The we're all gonna die if he opens up the wall in the dig, in the archaeological dig. This is what the episode's about, which is fine.
Yeah. I don't know where you think of the name Hawthorne from.
Hawthorne. I feel like Alex Hawthorne, perhaps. Hawthorne. Alex Hawthorne.
There's a Nathaniel Hawthorne. He
Alex
was an American
Hawthorne
novelist.
is from The Outer Worlds, which is a video game.
Oh, you're
Captain
such a nerd.
Wow, what a fucking obscure thing to be in my brain. Captain Alex Hawthorne, he was a smuggler that's supposed to save you at the start of the game, The Outer Worlds, but he inadvertently gets crushed by an escape pod, and you assume his identity. That is why it is in my brain.
Damn.
Video games.
You nerd. Says me, who's also co-hosting a Doctor Who podcast.
Yeah, you're the cool kid here. We then cut to the archaeological dig, where we see a man wheeling, I guess, wires. Probably for the camera. That would make a lot of sense, because that's one thing that I actually found really interesting here was the BBC camera guy, because they have like a news broadcast. And the guy, it's a live news broadcast, and you look at the cameraman and all the fucking gear he has to wear to get that live he's got like a whole backpack on of metal heavy looking shit.
Yeah, it's insane. Like that's one of my notes. Just these cameras are just so weird and alien to me.
Yeah, I'd love to get my hands on one. It'd be so much fun to fuck around with a classic camera like that. But yeah, it's so bulky. But we see the BBC Three, I think, news broadcast.
Yes.
It's weird that it was BBC Three.
So if you don't know, this era of Doctor Who was kind of set in the future. So it's aired in 1971, but it's actually the late 70s. But BBC Three still doesn't work out in this time, because we know BBC Three didn't exist until 2003.
Oh, that's interesting.
But yeah, this era of Doctor Who was in the future, which causes a lot of continuity problems later on.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's like a whole article on Wikipedia all about it. It's a big continuity issue.
It's really interesting that Doctor Who predicted BBC Three.
I mean, it's not that much of a prediction, is it? Like,
it's weird they thought the news would be on it.
Yeah, and like they didn't predict that it'd be like a youth kind of focused channel either.
Yeah, and that it would be super shit and no one would watch it. But the news broadcaster is looking for a Professor Horner, who I loved in this episode.
Oh yeah, he's like one of my favorite one-off characters.
He so doesn't care. uh, but the news broadcaster's looking for him because he's nowhere to be found. He talks to, I'm guessing, the producer of the news broadcast, and he's like, he's probably on makeup unless he's fucked off. And then we cut finally to the Doctor and Joe. And also, of course, I can't leave out Betsy the car.
Bessie.
Bessie the car, not Betsy. Ha ha ha. I tried.
Bessie is one of my favorite Doctor Who vehicles. Like, this incarnation of a Doctor was just all about cars and motorbikes and a hovercraft at one point. Great stuff.
I really liked it. It's interesting seeing the Doctor, be very terrestrial and stuck in one place. The only thing, right, and probably somewhat controversially, the only thing I would maybe change about Bessie, the license plate, right, says the license plate says who won. Yeah.
Yes.
Shouldn't it say who 3?
Oh, that's a good point.
Just saying.
Oh. See, I thought your issue would be that it's called Who when the character is actually called Doctor Who.
No, that's fun. I get that. It's a pun, it's fun. But I think it would have been more fun if it was Who 3 because he's the 3rd Doctor. But
are you aware of the Who mobile?
No.
Here, I can't look it up without finding the Who, the band.
I have a sneaking suspicion this is going to be a long episode. We're somehow an hour in.
I'll send you a picture of a Who mobile.
Send it to me. Oh my god, it's beautiful. I want it.
But yeah, the Doctor this incarnation of the Doctor was all about his gadgets and cars, and he was into karate. He was like, the Doctor doing the karate is great. I can't wait until we reach one of those episodes.
He's an interesting man, Jon Pertwee's Doctor, isn't he? And he dresses like a magician.
He's probably one of the most interesting people who became the Doctor. Like in World War II, he was a secret agent working for Winston Churchill. And he wound up working with Ian Fleming at one point, the author of James Bond. And he was childhood friends with Christopher Robin from Winnie the Pooh, the real life Christopher Robin.
What an interesting life. And his son became Alfred.
Yes, you're right, in that awful show.
Yeah, it's fine. It's a fine show. It's not great. It's junk TV. That show, right? Gotham, the TV show. Watch it entirely for the guy that plays Penguin.
Okay, he's good. At least.
He steals the fucking show entirely, and they know that because in the later seasons he gets a lot to do. But we see Joe and John. Joe and John. No, we see Joe and the Doctor. Not the other Doctor, the actual Doc. You get it. And the Doctor is fixing up his car, and Joe is talking some shit about it being Aquarius, and that means the occult and magic and stuff.
This is coming up to one of my favorite moments of one of my favorite Jon Pertwee moments.
I thought it was a great moment as well. The Doctor kind of sighs at Joe talking about magic and is like, why am I bothering to teach you all this science if you're just going to come at me with this bullshit? So the Doctor and Joe end up having I would say a charming debate about knowledge and scientific reasoning, and Joe's like, if there's something that couldn't be explained by anyone anywhere at any point, surely that would be magic. And the Doctor's like, you're an idiot. And then suddenly Bessie starts driving on her own. What's going on? We see the car driving. I thought this is ignoring like the punchline to this setup because I think it's fantastic. The actual effect of watching Bessie drive and seeing the steering wheel turn and the horn go down and stuff, really impressive.
Oh yeah, I'm just watching a scene right now to see if I can see the guy kneeling down underneath the steering wheel. I think I
I,
can see somebody there, but
they do a really good job hiding it. Like,
yeah.
but yeah, we see Bessie does a small loop, and then comes and sits, and then
I love it so much.
then the doctor, the car comes to a stop in front of them, and the doctor goes, "Bessie, how dare you go gallivanting around like that?" and Bessie honks back in conversation with the doctor.
And Joe just looks bewildered the entire time. She's like, "Huh?"
Her world is crumbling around her at the moment, as the doctor and Bessie make up. He tells Bessie to go back and park up before he changes his mind, and then suddenly a soldier fucking appears.
Benton.
Is he a recurring character?
Yes, he was very much like one of the main cast members this season.
The doctor does a lot of stuff with the military, or in this, or
Oh yes,
whatever they're
'cause
called. I forget their name actually.
Unit.
That's it, unit.
But yeah, he was stuck being their scientific advisor for most of Pertwee's run, because at the end of Patrick Troughton's era, he just got yoinked back to Earth, and he was like, "You lost all your memories about how to work the TARDIS and all that kind of shit," when you just get stuck on
The
Earth
doctor
for 5 years.
didn't know how to work the TARDIS. Just pressed buttons. But what did you say the man's name was?
Benton.
Benton shows up and says that he's certain that there's a good explanation for everything he just saw, but he has no idea what it is. And the doctor's like, "Do you think it's magic?" And Benton's like, "Magic? No, magic's not real. Who would believe in magic? Only fucking idiots." As he stares Joe in the eyes. I love the sly thing that that Pertwee says when he's like, "Do you think it was magic?" And then the guy's like, "What? No, I don't think it was magic." And then he just goes, "Oh, Joe would think it was magic." They have a lot of back and forth, but he's so sassy to her the whole time.
I love Pertwee's no shit attitude as well. It's just it's great. It's very much of what Capaldi adopted in his era. Just a no shit attitude.
Yeah, and very, very scientific thinking, and almost like a sarcastic teacher.
Yeah.
Joe's like, she doesn't think it was magic, but she doesn't know how it would have happened, and she argues that the doctor needs to explain it, and the doctor's like, "Oh, I could explain it quite easily. It's a remote control."
It very much reminds me of Back to the Future. The opening where we see the first DeLorean, and he's got a remote control and he's controlling it himself.
Sure.
Yeah.
I've seen Back to the
Remember?
Future like twice, and I don't remember the ending. But I'm gonna say yes, I remember that happening. Even if it didn't happen, and you're lying to me, you're just like gaslighting me into agreeing with you. I believe it happened. And the doctor fucking he's taking no prisoners in this scene, as he throws magicians under the rug as well, as he's like, "You see how easy it is to be a magician? You know what a fucking useless profession that is." Do you like magic?
Not really.
Oh wow, I love magic. I know a couple tricks.
Good for you. I'm so proud.
I'll tell you what, they are pretty easy to learn. But
yeah, like most magicians I've seen all do basically the same kind of tricks, and it's like, I've seen a million people do these. Like,
yeah. You see, it's hard to find really good magicians that like constantly wow you. But a show that I really enjoy binging, Penn and Teller Fool Us.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of clips from that show. Yeah,
Such a good show, and like, you get to see the cool magic trick, but the thing that I really like in that show is watching Penn and Teller's reactions to the magic, especially if it's a good trick, because they're fucking like they're like kids watching magic, and it's so charming. I love it.
Yeah, they're good guys.
Yeah, I mean, they're nice guys, weird weird guys in real life, but they're lovely. Uh,
I need to know more about this, but
they're
we'll
very
need to do it.
libertarian. They're very
Okay.
libertarian. Joe says that she wants to see a TV program, and she asks for a lift from Soldier Boy. Every What's the TV program that they're super? Is it the archaeological dig?
Yeah, it's the archaeological dig, but the thing is, it's like the show before the dig. Like, we don't do the dig until nighttime.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do like a pre-show where like join in tonight where we dig. And it's like, why are we doing a pre-show like 6 hours before the thing happens?
I mean, it's BBC Three. There's nothing else to put on, dude.
And like, why are they in such a rush to see nothing happen? Also, it's amazing to see, like, we're used to watching stuff on demand. We could record stuff at any time. It's just funny to see characters needing to rush home to watch a TV program.
Yeah, it's weird. I like the only TV program I watch that has to be like as it's live is Doctor Who or wrestling. I watch a lot of wrestling. And so it's always fun to watch wrestling live compared to pre-recorded. But yeah, it's interesting to see how much TV's changed from them because now if it's Netflix, it's watch it whenever. But the way that Amazon and Disney do it, which is my preferred way, is releasing the episodes weekly.
Yeah.
Which is I much prefer. It's easier to watch. But so instead of being like I have to get home at 6 to watch the news, it's now like, oh, it's Friday, the new episode's out. I'll put that on at some point today.
Yes.
Like the time expanded from this exact moment to 24 hours.
But yeah, I had this as a kid, just wanting to rush home and watch like an episode of Rugrats or something.
I
But
really
not
didn't.
not quite to this level. Like, I still had videotapes to record stuff on.
Yeah, I didn't watch a lot of live TV as a kid. Like my amount of live TV watching I would do would be like if I was bored and be like, oh, The Simpsons is on Channel 4. I'll watch that. Or like I remember specifically, I think it was like it must have been 2007, 8ish, and the Channel 4 would do like from like 6 p.m. to like 7. It was like a slate of like 4 Simpsons episodes back to back. Uh, and so like that was consistent viewing I would do. Other than that, besides like Doctor Who, I really wasn't. I was playing a lot of video games, uh, or board games, or
I had the exact opposite problem. I watched way too much TV.
yeah. Surprisingly, like I watched a lot of films. TV, it was like Pokemon, Simpsons,
Yeah.
your classic kids lineup, but I didn't watch that many like CBBC shows or anything like that.
I would watch CBBC and CITV like every chance I got. That was
CIT
always on.
CITV at like 6 a.m. was the fucking shit. Like that's
Yes.
when they'd have like Ninja Turtles and shit like and Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff on. It's just insane times to be up, but
I miss getting up early on weekends just to watch cartoons.
I love waking up early. I still wake up early if I can.
You disappoint me, young man.
You feel so productive if you wake up early.
Mm.
It's great. It's a
If you
great.
say so.
The doctor asks whether they're going, and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna go watch this new TV program. Do you want to come?" And the doctor's like, "Heh, I don't watch TV. That's for losers." The guy's like, "Oh, it's a pretty interesting program about devils. Like Devil's End has a very interesting reputation. I think's the exact line, referencing the town known as Devil's End, and that triggers something in the doctor where he looks very like shocked, and I was so confused as to why."
He probably knows like the area's reputation for like extraterrestrial signals or something along those lines.
Yeah, he's smart, so he knows. We
Also, who names a city or a town or a village Devil's End?
yeah. When they said that was the name of the village, I went, really? In Christian England?
Yeah,
That
it's very strange.
the doctor decides he is going to watch the TV program, and then we cut to the TV program, or the preemptive bit to the TV program, with the news broadcaster enjoying the show.
Yeah.
And I really like this bit. It's nice to see Doctor Who do a format change, especially in Classic Who, where now suddenly we're in the TV show and we're watching the news broadcast.
It's also a great way to give off exposition. Like, you don't have characters standing around explaining the history of the location for no reason. It's a television program, and the Doctor needs to learn the information this way, and just speed things along, and just makes it feel very natural.
Yeah, it's a very clever way of doing it. But this is where we get some information on Devil's End, where we learn that underneath the church was a witch's cavern, where some guy whose name I just read and immediately forgot participated in black magic rituals.
Mathew Hopkins.
Is that his name?
I believe so. The guy he's talking about, yeah.
Wow. Another Mathew. Evil name.
Yes, I agree. I hate Matthews.
I don't know. Mathew Hopkins was the witch hunter. Yeah. He wasn't participating in the rituals. He was the witch hunter man. He was killing them. So we're heroes. Matthew's the name of a hero, not an evil man. A hero, I tell you.
Well, you're an evil man, so it still counts.
A wonderful bit of foreshadowing here for a moment that I don't think quite lives up to its potential. The news broadcaster, he makes his way around the underground of the church, talking about, all the rituals that were here and how it was super weird and like part of the spooky mythology of the town. Then he ends next to a gargoyle that plays a very important part in the story and shows up several times. And I thought, this was a really good way of like introducing the gargoyle into the story. And he's like, there's something strange about Devil's End. The reveal that happens with that gargoyle, we'll get there. But
yeah, it's not great, is it?
It was one of the few things in this episode that genuinely made me laugh. Like I was, oh god, it was great.
I do love a little bit where the TV reporter's like, this is an unquiet place. And then we get like a smash cut to a director saying, quiet please. I think that's a nice little moment.
That is a great little thing. I didn't even pick up on that the first time I watched it. That's fantastic.
Like, it's just a good little smash cut, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, a thing that I really noticed and really appreciated watching this episode compared to the previous episodes we just covered, the resurrection of the Daleks, the scenes don't last 5 seconds long.
Oh yeah, it's almost got perfect pacing, I would say.
Yeah, it's got lovely long scenes with characters giving dialogue, and we're not going cut all the fucking time.
And whenever it cuts, it feels absolutely natural and just moves along the plot along perfectly.
Yeah, it's super It was really refreshing, and it's the sort of pace I like Classic Who to have. I think it's charming in its own way.
It's a nice little quiet 25 minutes of television. Like, it's a perfect Saturday afternoon kind of thing.
Yeah, but I watched it on a Friday. Whoa.
Oh, you rebel.
But yes, we cut to the outside where the producer or director, whatever, says quiet please. We're still with the news broadcast. As we cut to the live feed now. What we just saw was a pre-recorded segment. Now we're in the live feed, where he's discussing how far the archaeological dig has progressed and where they're getting at, and blah de blah de blah. He has a very interesting analogy for it, don't you think?
What was it? A giant pie? A
giant pie. So he's describing the hill that they're currently digging into. It's called the Devil's Hump or something, and he's like, it's what's his exact wording? Because it's such a weird analogy.
they've cut their way into the Devil's Hump like a giant pie.
Yeah, they cut their way in as if it was a giant pie. then he says, but the question is, can Professor Horner pull out his plum?
It's a very 1970s phrase. It's referring to like a plum job, an ideal job.
I assumed it was talking about the old fairy tale, the rhyme.
Was it?
Where
what rhyme?
he sticks. It's like a German thing, where a guy's sticking his thumbs into pies, and I'm not insane here. Surely this is a thing. This is a thing. This is definitely a thing.
You are making me hungry, Phil.
Kid thumb pie fairy tale. That's not going to get me anything. Oh my god! It's on so many different levels than we expected.
Yes.
And you'll get it immediately. Little Jack Horner in the poem, as narrated by the narrator, puts his thumb in the pie. When he pulls his thumb out, he finds a plum to stick to his thumb. When he sees this, he screams with happiness, "What a good boy am I." The kid in the poem is called Jack Horner,
wow.
and the archaeologist is called Professor Horner.
Oh my god. That's a good pull.
Look at that. Fucking old-ass nursery rhyme buried in my head. Pulled out a little bit of trivia. Yeah,
it's one of those news announcers that speaks in puns.
Yeah. The nursery rhyme is called Little Jack Horner. That's some clever little writing there.
Yeah.
And we just thought it was a weird analogy for him to make. We see Professor Horner, basically telling the news broadcaster to hurry it on up, and we pan out from the TV, and a very nice. I love it when edits do that, where you're in a thing and then you pan out and you've been watching it on a screen this whole time.
Yeah.
To the room with all the members of UNIT as the Dr. Joe and Man, whose name I forget, comes in.
Benton.
Yeah, I'm never going to remember. And and they come in and they're like, "Have we missed the TV show?" And he's like, "Shut up, women. Let us watch it." As they sit down to continue watching the TV show. Interesting.
It's a bit. What? Sorry, you were going to say?
You go.
I was going to say it's a bit of a weird kind of set. It's an interesting set. It's got a television. It's got like bunk beds. I'm just wondering what kind of room this is.
I assumed it was like barracks for the unit soldiers, and they've got like a recreational TV in their shared living space. Why the Doctor doesn't just build his own TV, I don't know, but whatever. We cut back to the news broadcast, and he's talking about how, the show will come back at midnight. As we said, this was a really weird pre-show, like several hours before the actual main show. And he's like, at midnight, Professor Horner will go and he'll do the dig, and we'll see something spooky maybe. And then Professor Horner's like, "Oh, you said my name. Okay, let's get it done, boys." And he takes him down.
Also, just a little bit before we go in any further. When we zoom out to the camera, we see Yates, which is the guy sitting there watching the television, and he looks really interested in what he's watching, but later on, he's not interested at all. It's a very bizarre kind of thing.
He was just there for the history section. When it starts getting all like into the actual dig, he's like, I don't care.
Yeah. But like later on, we're watching the rugby instead of watching the actual action happening.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a weird character shift.
Yeah. Professor Horner goes into the Devil's Hump with the news broadcaster, who's like, who you can see on his face. If it wasn't live TV, he'd be strangling Professor Horner. He takes him down. They look at a wall, and he's like, "That's the bit right there." And he says it's going to be the greatest archaeological find since Sutton Hoo. To which the news broadcaster's like, "Would you explain who Sutton Hoo is?" And the professor goes, "No." I love him so much. I think he's such a great character, and it reminded me of Oh, who's the director who did? He's a very famous. He did. Oh my God, what's it called? TV show you like? It's super weird.
David Lynch, yeah.
Yeah, David Lynch. There's a story with David Lynch.
Yes.
Where I don't remember what the exact film is. It's like the Titanic or Avatar or something, and he's like, he was in an interview and he said, I think, let's say Avatar for the sake of the argument, it's not correct, but he's like, I think Avatar is the greatest piece of feminist cinema ever made. And the person who he was interviewing went, do you care to explain that? And he goes, no.
But it just sums up David Lynch in a nutshell. So nothing he does makes sense.
It's so good. Or he's like, nah, fuck it. I'm just gonna say stuff.
Sorry to go off topic, but have you ever visited David Lynch's YouTube channel?
I didn't know he had one.
So every day he does a weather report. He sits there at his window and just yells what weather it is in Los Angeles to you.
Lockdown's done strange things to us all.
It's great.
What a wonderful man. The news broadcaster decides he'll explain about Sutton Hoo, and the professor's like, fuck that, let's talk about the wall, which is what people are interested in. Do you have any idea who Sutton Hoo is?
Research here. Sutton Hoo is the site of two early medieval cemeteries, dating from 6th to 7th centuries near Woodbridge in Suffolk, England. Archaeologists have been excavating the area since 1938. One cemetery had an undisturbed ship burial with a wealth of Anglo-Saxon artifacts. So yeah, it's a big historical dig.
Yeah, sounds pretty big, but not as big as the dig at Devil's Hump. That's a much bigger one.
My mind is too dirty for this episode, to be honest. Dig at Devil's Hump?
Yeah. You get a lot of that, in the 70s, from the 50s up to really the late 70s. Of sayings that are dirty now that weren't really dirty back then.
Dr. Seuss's first book was a pocket full of boners.
I read a sci-fi book from the 50s called The Adventures of the Spaceship Beagle. Very good book. And in it, there's this giant alien cat, and they all refer to it as pussy the whole time. They're like, oh, that's a good pussy there. Who's a good pussy? What a big pussy that is. And it's like, okay.
Well, James Bond also named a villain Octopussy.
Yeah. The professor goes on to explain that he's pretty sure that the Devil's Hump is a burial ground for an ancient warrior from 800 BC, I think it is that he said. And that they'll find out tonight when he opens up, and the news broadcaster's like, why tonight? Why midnight? Why are you being so fucking weird about it? And the professor responds with April the 30th is Beltane, isn't it? Do you know what Beltane is, or did you know what it was before watching this?
No, I do not know. It's like the halfway point between Halloween, so that's all I know.
Oh,
but it's like a halfway Halloween kind of ritual kind of thing. I'm not quite sure.
Who knows? I don't know why that's a spooky date. Why is halfway to Halloween spooky?
Because it's Halloween, dude.
But yeah, I know. But is a quarter the way to Halloween spooky? Is 3/4 of the way to Halloween spooky?
He says it's the greatest occult festival of the year, bar Halloween. So I don't know why it's that date.
Yeah, I've never met a single person that celebrates Beltane. I'd be interested to find out how big it is still. I bet there's a bunch of weirdos that go to it.
Yes.
I bet you could meet some characters if you went to a Beltane festival. 100%.
We should just go next year for research.
Yeah, for research. That's why I'd go. Research, definitely. There was a person in our college group class that me and Scott went with. without naming names.
I know who you're talking about. Yes.
That's the type of person that I think would
Yes.
be. Yeah. And if anybody listening is in college or university or something, when we say that type of person, everyone's got you know who we're talking about, right? It's that person in your class. That one, right? Like,
She was a very away with fairies, that kind of person, isn't she?
she was certainly unique. We cut back to the doctor, and he's like, "Of course, Beltane, everything's coming together."
And then he's like, "My new book comes out tomorrow. That's why we're doing the dig at midnight."
It's really good marketing. You gotta get
It really is. He's live on national television, just promoting his book.
Yeah. As the doctor's having he's trying to put the pieces together. He's figured out that something's not quite right with all these all these sci-fi, well, I say sci-fi, all these devilish what's the word I'm looking for here, like suggestions, devilish impressions that are being around him, with the mention of Aquarius and the occult and Devil's Town or whatever the fuck it's called and stuff like that.
It's also one of those rare times where he's able to enter a situation completely understanding what's going on because of the device of the television in this episode. Like, usually activities occur like before the doctor joins in and he doesn't know what's going on, he has to learn. But here he's just like, "Oh yeah, I know the situation."
Yeah, it's a really interesting flip on the usual dynamic, isn't it? And then Miss Hawthorne shows up to protest the dig. I never realized how long this news broadcast goes on for. I mean, I suppose they have to fill 6 hours till midnight, don't they?
But when I think they stop recording after this, so it's like, I guess we move on to show something else after this broadcast until midnight. It's weird.
BBC One still do this, and I think it's so weird that they do this. This is a TV channel funded on public funds, where for like an hour or two every day in like the middle of the day they will just air nothing.
Yeah.
Like they just won't air anything on TV, and I was like, okay. And so that's what I assumed they would just do here. It's like, oh yeah, we did the pre-show 6 hours before, so now it's going to be 6 hours of fuck all, and then we'll be back.
Yeah, it's very strange.
This is a scene now where Hawthorne and the professor are having an argument over like should the dig go ahead and stuff like that, and she's like, no, it shouldn't go ahead, and he's like, you're an idiot, and she's like, no, it shouldn't go ahead, I know it shouldn't go ahead, and the news broadcaster's like, how could you possibly know that it shouldn't go ahead? And she's like, oh, well, I'm a witch, and the professor's like, see, she's an idiot. Like
Yeah, originally this the whole she's crazy angle was supposed to be much more, but the actress who actually plays the character believed in the supernatural, and she very much was in command of how the character was written, which I think makes it slightly better, because she was supposed to be like an old divering kind of lady, but here she's kind of right to some extent. She's correct in what she's saying.
I mean, she's correct in the sense that bad shit will happen. She's incorrect in believing it's magic, but it's like failing successfully.
But she has some idea of this. She has some idea of what the devil is in her reality.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out it's a more of a sci-fi kind of thing.
Yeah.
But she's still kind of aware of what is going on, even though it's magic.
Yeah, and I mean, like, she understands that it's like, the devil doing this shit or whatever, but we all know, us viewers, that the real devil is trapped beside a black hole, deep underground on a mining station. That we know the devil's there.
I haven't seen this episode in so long. The Sontaran the Ood two-parter.
Yeah, the first time the Ood show up. It's such a weird episode. Thing I never realized, just watching her performance here, she's talking about, it's the devil, whatever, and then she ends her sentence before we cut back to the doctor by going, the horned beast, and throwing up like
Yes.
a rock on symbol, like, hell yeah.
I love that, yeah.
Yeah, she's a big metalhead deep down. Like, the horned beast, dude, fuck yeah. And the doctor's like, it's time to get a shift on, Joe. And Joe's like, where are we going? And he's like, ha ha, Devil's End, of course.
But yeah, he knows exactly what's going on as well. Like, he somewhat believes her because it's not far from the truth what she's saying.
Yeah, he's figured everything out before it's began.
So yeah, time is running out for the broadcast, and we're just going to end the broadcast. Why not tune into BBC at 11:45 tonight?
Yeah, I wonder what they're
Okay.
showing on BBC at 11:45 tonight. Let's find out. Hello, BBC.
We can't even look up BBC Three anymore, can we?
Nope, because it's not really a channel. But on BBC One, I would like to see the schedule. At 11:45, there's nothing on. But
Nothing.
at 11:35, it's A View from the Terrace. Football. Football. thing.
Wonderful. My favorite thing. Yes.
Yeah,
Go sports.
Football. What I really like about the schedule looking at BBC, because they moved BBC digital. Although I think it's actually getting turned back into terrestrial TV.
Yeah,
thing.
BBC Three is at some point next year, I think.
Yeah, because they realized that no one uses iPlayer, so making all their content exclusive to iPlayer was dumb. But just looking at the schedule, it's very fun because it goes BBC 1, 2, and 4.
But BBC Four did exist before BBC Three, so it's not that strange.
That's strange. That is strange.
So yeah, BBC Three used to be called BBC Choice, and it would air. It would be on air all day, and it would have like children's programs throughout the day, and then turn into like BBC Three kind of. It was weird. It was before CBBC and CBeebies became a thing, so we just had all these things on one channel.
Interesting. That's a bit
Yeah.
of BBC history I wasn't aware about.
But yeah, we're going to scrap BBC Four eventually as well because they just stopped funding it completely.
These I don't want to go on a rant about the BBC, but fuck them.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah, we
yeah.
could go on all day.
We then cut from the news broadcast saying goodbye into the pub where we see a bunch of drunk men making fun of Miss Hawthorne, but there's one guy who's like, maybe she's right though. Maybe she's right.
And I do love how this is like so early on in the show where it's Earth hasn't been invaded that long, so we can have natural debates about whether or not aliens exist, whereas in New Who, aliens take over Earth every year and somehow people forget, which is one of your biggest problems.
Yeah, it's one of the things I hate about New Who is no one remembers anything that's ever happened ever at all times. Like, but yeah, I also thought watching this scene play out, something that I thought was kind of really refreshing in just a strange way. I don't know what it was about it, but the conversation between the three men, it felt so natural. Like, it was really, really well written and well performed. Like, it felt incredibly natural listening to these three guys chat.
And it helps add like an extra depth to the town. Like, we hear the opinions of the town members. It's like each one has their own unique perspective on what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Whereas in modern Doctor Who, you only have 45 minutes to tell a story. You can't develop any of the side characters that much.
Yeah, and in modern Doctor Who as well, they don't even develop the companions anymore. So. We cut from the four men at the pub chatting away about the possibilities of the devil coming back and Hawthorne being a bit kooky and maybe she's right or whatever, and we cut to a policeman officer coming out of his way. What I found interesting watching this, when I saw him, I went, how many episodes of Doctor Who in a row have we reviewed that have had a police officer in them? It's from the 11th hour onward. There's been a police officer in like every fucking episode.
Was there one in The Woman Who Fell to Earth?
Yeah. The
Oh yeah, Yaz.
Yaz is a police officer. That's... That's like her whole thing that they always forget about, which you forgot about as well.
To be fair.
It's fucking Amy dressed up as a cop, Yaz as a cop. In the resurrection of the Daleks, cops are fucking everywhere. In this one, there's a cop. There's surprisingly a lot of police the past month that we've been doing these episodes.
Yeah, it's certainly a weird coincidence, yeah.
But we see the policeman come out of his house and get ready to go off to work. He's going to be riding a nice bicycle.
It's a very 70s outfit for a policeman as well.
It's a Bobby outfit, isn't it? Like, I love his chin strap. It looks so uncomfortable. It looks so uncomfortable.
It looks like it certainly wasn't made for him.
It looks like he's wearing like a kid's dress up outfit.
Yes. Like it doesn't even go below his chin either. It just kind of sits there.
Yeah, just on it, exact strap right there. But he bumps into Miss Hawthorne, and he's like, "Oh, I just saw you on the telly. How'd you get here? I saw you in the." So confused by the invention of the television, but.
But he's genuinely a pleasant person towards her. Like he doesn't call her crazy or anything.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, that was a lovely interview," and she's like, "Ah, it wasn't that lovely. They cut me off, but you'll see. I'll be right later." Then they walk, and then it goes to a bit that I couldn't help but cringe a little bit when it happened. The wind picks up very strong, and starts blowing, and the witch, the Hawthorne, throws her hands into the air and starts chanting an incantation to, I guess, make the wind calm down. And we see the police officer, as he's struggling, pick up a stone and go, and he's like, oh no, he's going to kill Hawthorne. Something's possessed him. As she's casting this incantation, and eventually the wind calms down, they get their bearings. But I couldn't help but like smile and be like, oh, as soon as she raised her hands and started chanting, because I was like, oh god, fuck me. If I saw someone doing that in real life, I think I'd cry. Like I'd be like, oh no, stop.
Certainly.
Like
I get, but it's a good little character moment. I think it makes sense for the character.
I understand why she's doing it. It's just so silly. It's
yeah.
She starts yelling out to the elementals. It's like, fuck me, stop, shut up. But it worked, so she was right. Did they explain why the wind stopped during for her incantations?
It will in the next episode. In the next episodes we cover, we'll find out. Spoilers.
Mystery.
Spoilers, sweetie.
I get that reference. We then cut to the Doctor and Joe driving, and Bessie absolutely fucking zooming it down the road. Like, and then we cut to probably the most cartoony part in this whole episode. It's like straight out of Scooby-Doo.
The road sign moving because of the wind. Yeah,
it's like the road sign is spinning like a Beyblade to change the directions to Devil's End because of the wind, and it's very silly.
It's 1971. It's fun.
And we then cut back to Hawthorne. I have to say the effects in this episode are very good, though.
Oh yeah, they certainly use minimal effects. It's all practical, really.
Mm-hmm. There's like with Bessie driving by herself, and with the sign spinning, and then I can't remember if it's this episode or if it's the next episode with the Brigadier, when stuff starts like exploding. There's like a bubble around the town or whatever.
Yeah, that's next episode.
Yeah, that looked incredible. That looked so good still. Like the effects that they put into this were very good, which again really contrasts what will happen with the show with Resurrection of the Daleks, where they just start forgetting to put in effects.
Yeah, but to be fair, Resurrection of the Daleks is like
Oh yeah,
a more
way more sci-fi.
effects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We then cut to Hawthorne having a stroll through the graveyard where she, kills her victims, like the old man we saw from the start of the episode. Uh, uh, she bumps into a member of the church. He's not the reverend. He's just the reverend's helper, I guess. I don't know church jobs.
But yeah, he's acting very mysteriously. Oh.
Yeah, he's acting very very spooky, and he's like, "What do you want? What do you want?" And she's like, "Oh, I want to speak to the vicar, not the reverend, the vicar. Is there a difference? Probably." And he says that Mr. Magister is not in at the moment. I never caught on to how much of a pun the name Magister is.
Dude, this is Delgado's version of the Master. He always names himself the Master, but in different languages. it's weird. Also, in his first appearance, he calls himself Colonel Masters. Just Colonel Masters. He's not much of a disguise kind of man.
But he loves disguises.
His disguise in this episode is to wear glasses.
It doesn't even fool the cameraman. As soon as we see him, it's like, da, da, da. You don't even get the chance for the whoo as he takes off the glasses. Here we find out that the new Mr. Magister is the new vicar, and the old vicar suddenly vanished under mysterious circumstances, and we don't know what happened to him. My guess is that Hawthorne killed him. But
sure.
She's
Makes
a cold-blooded killer,
perfect sense.
Italia. The Hawthorne threatens the man, being like, I don't want to have to use violence to get past you to come and see this new vicar, and this is when the Master makes his appearance. We see the back of his head, and he's like, "Oh, I hope violence isn't going to be necessary," as he's playing this religious man.
It's such a great reveal as well. It's like, the Master's back.
Yeah,
Even though he was in every episode this year at this point, it's still great to see him getting revealed.
I would love New Who to do something like this. Yeah, with the new Master, right? So it's like, we're getting like 6 episodes or something, or like 8 or something with this new season.
Yeah.
Like halfway through every episode, that Master pops up. Every time.
They did it almost in that season where Missy is in the vault, where she is in not how many episodes was she in? Like 6 or 7?
Quite a lot, but she was essentially a companion.
Yeah.
Which I really liked. I fucking loved those two together.
That season was fantastic.
Yeah. Besides, it had some dumb moments, mainly with Bill.
Yeah.
But yeah, such a good season of Doctor Who. That, God, I love Capaldi. But
it's Capaldi's only good season.
Nah,
not sorry.
Wow, I disagree. I disagree with you. It's definitely his best season. His seasons got progressively better. His from really bad to pretty decent to really really good. But we see the Master, and he's like, "What can I do for you, Mrs. Hawthorne?" And the music goes like dun dun dun, as we then cut away. I have to say, he does probably a better job than most people I've seen at making, the goatee is already a very evil piece of facial hair. But I think his goatee is somehow more evil than anyone else's.
His goatee is one of the best goatee. Like the bits of silver at the side, it's great.
Mm-hmm. It's very evil. A weird thing that just popped in my head. Is this the first incarnation of the Master we see?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. The guy that replaces him, when they regenerate. My BritBox. Oh, there we go. Okay. The guy that replaces him eventually, did they purposely find someone that looks almost identical?
I don't know, but yes, he's very almost identical
Yeah,
in terms
it's
of like facial hair and his hair in general. Yeah.
yeah, it was always the strangest thing to me as a kid, looking at like, oh, these are all the incarnations of the Master, and it's like he was this guy, and then he was that guy again, and then then he was a burnt man for a while. And then, like,
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why they cast him that way. I need to look deeper into it, but it's very weird. They just go for someone looking at almost identical. But Anthony Ainsley is a very different master. He's more campy than Roger Delgado.
at least the performance is different.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be just like they were trying to recast and play it off as the same character. We cut back and we see the Brigadier. This is my first episode with him,
Oh,
and I have to say, he's lovely, isn't he? He doesn't do much, but
I
he's
love
lovely.
him. I love him so much. Like he's so popular. He would just go on to meet every Doctor until the series got cancelled.
That's crazy. And you know, he met Capaldi as well as a Cyberman.
No, thank you. No,
And then he
no,
flew off
no.
and exploded.
Nope. Absolutely terrible. We will talk about that more in our next episode of the podcast, I swear to God.
But yeah, no, he's charming. And I get why he was so popular. And it's, you know, I know if I all the information I have about him is thanks to New Who, because especially in the later seasons of Moffat, when they bring in Unit and back again after the 50th anniversary, they really played into this era of Doctor Who with the Brigadier's daughter and everything like that, and being like, hey, look, it ties together and woo. But the Brigadier's off to some event. He looks very fancy. Do we find out where he's going?
I don't know. It's some kind of like gala or something.
Yeah, he's dressed smart
Like-
either way.
I guess it's something to like honor soldiers or something or other. He looks very
He's off to pump
uniform,
the Queen.
kind of.
That's his pumping Queen clothes. That's all right. But the soldiers sit back down, and a line that I really enjoyed, where they're saying goodbye to the Brigadiers. He's off to this really fancy, extravagant like gala thing, as we said, as he's going to go pump the Queen, and the soldiers sit back down. They're like, oh, you know, some people have it made, don't they? We've got a TV and corned beef sandwiches. I was like, you know,
These sandwiches look very disgusting.
they do. They look kind of miserable. I have to. I don't eat meat anymore. I'm a vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian for like, fuck me, like 6 years or something like that now. Maybe how long? Like 6 or 7 years now. So I don't eat meat at all, and the idea of eating meat is really just makes me feel sick. But I gotta say, when I ate meat, I did enjoy a corned beef sandwich. It's not a bad sandwich. Stick a bit of ketchup on there. Not a bad sandwich. Not a bad sandwich.
But it just looks gross.
Have you ever had a corned beef sandwich?
No, it looks
Wow.
gross.
Wow. You know, it's cheap meat. It's filling. It's fine. It's totally it's a fine replacement for ham.
Fair enough, dude.
It tastes kind of like spam. Oh, not really. It's a weird sandwich filling, and yeah, it does look gross. I wouldn't eat it anymore, but and then we cut back to the Master and Hawthorne, and the Hawthorne's begging with the Master that he has to help her stop this dig. I don't know what the fucking vicar can do to stop an archaeological dig, but apparently he can do that.
Yeah, it's more of a politician kind of move to stop a dig from happening.
Yeah,
than-
although I suppose in a small village, the vicar would have a lot of pull back then.
I guess,
perhaps?
yeah. I don't know enough about small villages. I hate small villages.
I
They're
like-
almost cult-like.
Like, we get that a lot in I think the next episode, where it's very for the greater good, but yeah, you know, I grew up in several different small villages because I moved around a lot as a kid, and I think it's way different now than it was back then. Back then, definitely the church was a bigger involvement in everyone's lives,
Yeah,
whereas now it's just nosy neighbors.
yeah, certainly.
But yeah, no, country villages fucking suck. I'm so miserable. I do enjoy the quiet of them though. I have to say, it's like
That's fair.
a double-edged sword. I like the peace and quiet, but I hate how there's nothing there. Like,
I kind of like the idea of peace and quiet, but at the same time, like a week there, I would just go insane. It sounds so boring. Unlike the Doctor on Earth, it's just I need to move. I need to go somewhere, meet people.
I've been alone in my flat for like I don't know 6 days almost in total. There was like a brief moment for like 2 days where my flatmate came back before leaving again. I just been kicking about myself. This is like one of the longest social interactions I've had recently, and I've been totally fine. I'm very happy in my own company doing fuck all. It's
Yeah,
and growing up in the countryside probably prepared me for that life of solitude that I'm currently living at the moment. Like
that's fair, man.
the Hawthorne and the Master start having an interesting debate where Hawthorne is, doing what she's been doing the whole episode, being like, everyone's gonna die, the world's gonna end it's Beltane, and she's like, don't you think about the souls of your congregation? And then the Master, very interestingly, I thought it was like very reserved and like, well, the soul's a very outdated way of thinking. If you look at it from an existential point, I was like, ooh, I actually want to hear what you have to say here. This sounds very interesting. Like,
I thought the same thing just as watching it again. Just like I want to hear more of his perspective.
yeah,
But at the same time, it's kind of like the classic villain kind of trait to make him intriguing.
yeah,
Like,
it's
it's like the whole kind of Thanos kind of like
mhm,
mythology
yeah.
where you destroy half the world to save it. It's like interesting concept. I want to subscribe to your newsletter.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I think very hard to write a villain where you want to actively listen and understand their plan. It's very easy to write a villain that's like twirling a mustache and being like, well, see, I'm going to take over the world, and like that's very easy to do. But actually writing a villain that is well read and understanding and has all these complex thoughts on several different issues, it's super interesting, and I think super well portrayed by this dude.
Yeah, Roger Delgado was very good at passing off what he's saying as intellectual. He's very interesting.
Yeah. Hey, look at that, we passed the 2 hour mark, baby.
How?
I don't know. This episode is 20 minutes long.
We're only 15 minutes in.
We could cover a whole 40-minute fucking New Who episode in an hour 40. It takes us so long to get through Classic Who. Why? Why does it take us so long to get through Classic Who? The Master says that Hawthorne's being worried for no reason. He takes off his glasses, which I thought was an interesting move, because they're see-through. But because he begins to hypnotize Hawthorne.
But I guess the reflection of the glasses kind of like stopped his eyes from being crystal clear.
I suppose, yeah. I guess that could be an explanation. Glasses don't super reflect from the inside, If it's a sunny day, sometimes you can see your own eye, but like very vaguely. But I guess he just wants to be extra safe. He doesn't want to hypnotize himself.
Yes.
But he begins to hypnotize Hawthorne. New Who doesn't really do much hypnosis, does it?
No, the Master is certainly less of a hypnotist. Like the last time he hypnotized people was in that awful David Tennant Regeneration episode. Like, remember when half the planet became a Master and they were hypnotized or whatever?
That's beautiful. and all their faces changed. And
I mean no like.
you're so negative. It's beautiful. A good moment.
Like, I'm sorry for diversion of the episode again. How did they write away from that? Like nobody remembered the entire planet turning into the master. How did we do that again?
I fucking don't know, man. Like, how did they forget the fucking Daleks stealing the Earth? How did they forget fucking any of the shit that happens to them all the time?
Yeah, that's the problem with modern Doctor Who. The plans are too big, whereas here it's like the Master wants to take over a village. He's doing his evil deeds in a village.
I think
That's it.
I also think that the invention of the internet really hurts Doctor Who.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, because back here it's like a village, it's secluded, it's quiet, you can get away with nobody really knowing what's going on. The Doctor only even finds out because of a news broadcast, whereas now everything's so connected to everything. There's
Yeah.
currently junkies shouting outside my flat, which is lovely.
Oh, great. Go, invite them on as special guests.
I'm sure they're big fans of Doctor Who. I can't understand what they're saying, but it's fine. It's not getting picked up by my deliciously good microphone. Mwah. But anyway, I think I understand why this is 2 hours long at the moment.
Yeah, we're going on a lot of detours.
Yeah. But Hawthorne manages to resist the Doctor's, not the Doctor's, yeah, the Master's hypnosis. Does this happen a lot, or is she like extra? Is it because she's a witch?
I think it's one of those like Star Wars kind of things where she has a strong mind to because she's already aware of like she's aware of like supernatural forces which don't exist but they kind of do in her. Like
They're real
alien
for
forces.
her.
Yeah. So she's probably trained herself to like stop herself from being swayed by the devil and shit like that.
I think that she leaves the Master and storms off, and the Master points at her to signal his assistant to go and get her basically. And I never noticed this watching it before, but the assistant like starts skulking. Like,
yeah, he
hunched
does.
back over, running through broad daylight, like over a hill, and it looks very silly.
It does.
We then cut to Bessie driving in the dark.
It's clearly shot in the day, by the way.
It's 100% shot in the day, and they've just turned the lights on. But shooting in the day and turning at nighttime is a really effective way of shooting at nighttime. Because the issue with shooting at nighttime is cameras fucking suck in low light conditions, and you need to have a shit ton of lights, which is really hard to do if you're in the middle of nowhere without power sources. So I totally get it. We do it all the time with the stuff I make. We did it in the Mess film and all.
Oh yeah, and this was shot in the 70s. They only had a limited amount of time to actually shoot this episode, so it's fair enough to shoot in the day.
Yeah, but Bessie's driving along, and then they eventually stop, and the Doctor's like, "Wow, we're completely lost."
And the reason we're lost is because Joe has the map upside down. Which is actually what happened in real life. When driving on the set, Jon Pertwee and Katie Manning were desperately lost because Katie Manning was reading the map upside down. And we just wrote that into the episode.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. It is such a great little moment. They are really fun together. Like the Doctor again. He's so sassy. He's so sassy to her, but they are very fun. And yeah, I love that moment. That's lovely. And then the Joe looks at the map. She figures out which way they have to go, and she points them in the direction. And just the thing that made me laugh there was Jon Pertwee's, as he looks at her and he goes, "Thank you very much." Like his reading up was so good.
It's effortless acting as well. It just feels so natural.
Yeah.
I love him so much.
We then cut back to Devil's Hump, where the news broadcast people are getting ready. we see that the news broadcaster is the news broadcaster, whose name is Alistair, is very on edge at the moment. He's very stressed out. And the producer goes over to the professor and tells him that they're just getting ready to start any moment now. There a great interaction here with the producer and the professor here. So the producer's like basically giving him directions and being like, so this is gonna happen, then this, and do this, and then this. Like Tom thought it would be great if you do this thing, and like that would be absolutely super. And I love how sarcastic the professor is when he's like, right, oh lad, I'll do my best to be absolutely super. Like he's just not caring and taking the absolute mick out of all of it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic little bit of character work as well. Like, there's so much said about his character in such little words. It's great character work, I think.
Yeah, he gets across a lot of personality through not a lot of scenes. We then cut to the soldiers watching the tally, or one of them is, and Benton comes in, and he's like, "Isn't it time for the dig?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, it's on in a moment, but this is the highlights from the rugby game." And he's like, "Oh, we should change the channel to the dig." And then he starts watching the rugby game, and then he sits down, and he's like, "Oh." That's like...
Also, and I think it's in the beginning of the next episode, it's shown where we have some sort of bet going on where we exchange money, but it's a highlights game.
It's a highlight. I mean, maybe they missed the live, but yeah.
Yeah, but like, I feel like somebody's swindling somebody there.
Somebody read it in the paper. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of rugby at all?
I am not.
No,
Are
neither
you?
am I. No, I've never really sat down to watch rugby. The only time my family really cares for the Four Nations, because Scotland, it's like the one sport we're pretty decent at. Are we decent? We might be shit at rugby. I honestly don't know.
I don't know. But also, this is another scene where it's like, earlier they were fascinated about the Devil's End, what's going on there. And now the actual show is going on, and we're like, let's watch highlights of rugby, which has already aired, and
but
we could read it in...
You see them, like, he's going to change the channel, but the rugby's just that good. Doesn't want it. Like, the rugby is so good.
But it's their job. It's their job to watch this broadcast of Devil's End.
Yeah, but the rugby was really good. We then cut to the doctor running into the pub, wants a quick pint, but he can't get a drink because the bar's no longer serving. He's like, it's fine, I didn't want to drink anyway. I found this whole scene to be very interesting. People like instantly didn't get along with the doctor in this pub, and I thought that was weird.
Oh yeah, he's like a very uptight kind of person, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. The bartender has a very interesting saying, because the doctor's like, please just hurry up and give us the directions to where this dig's going on. We need to get there as quick as possible. And the bartender's like, everyone's in such a rush from the town. And then he says the saying, all will be the same in 100 years' time. And I feel like, that's obviously just a saying that's completely and unfoundly not true. Especially for the 70s. So much has changed in 60 years' time. But I feel like that's very much a saying from, like the 1700s into the it's like, it'll all be, life doesn't change. It's like it's not even that, it's probably from like the Dark Ages, where there's 1,000 years of fuck all happening. Like,
certainly doesn't feel like it's like mid 20th century. Like, a lot of things even then, like compare 1920 to 1970, a lot of big changes, like man walking on the moon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, massive changes. It's very much seems like a very old colloquialism from like definitely the Dark Ages, where you're like a wee peasant drinking your mead, and you're like, it's all going to be the same in 100 years. Why fucking bother? Like,
it feels like something the writer wrote down based on like what his granddad said or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're so deep into this.
The doctor and several members of the pub end up getting in a bit of a spat over the doctor very eagerly wanting to get directions now, right now, and he's being very kind of rude to everybody, and they're being kind of rude back. And Joe eventually cools the situation, ends up getting directions to the dig.
I love how one of the men was like, you, they say the doctor is like a wig.
Yeah, because he's got for his age, he's got a very full head of hair.
It always reminds me of my nana's hair.
Yeah, it is very much of that style. But
and he had that hairstyle up until his death. Like, good head of hair.
Yeah, good head of hair. And I think it's because when you get that age, I think a lot of old ladies end up getting that hairstyle because their hair gets thinner, and it's a way to make your hair look fluffier and more full. And so perhaps he was thinning, but he still had like not a receding hairline or anything like that. So that's why he's done it like that. It's just uncommon for men to have that good of hair.
Yes.
Hair talk. And then we cut back to the master sitting in his church chatting to one of the guys from the pub who ran off to go see him. And he's describing the doctor, and he's like, did he say that his name was the doctor? Did the doctor say his name was the doctor in the pub scene?
I
don't remember him.
Back.
I might have just skipped over it just now, but I don't remember him saying that. He's like, I'm the doctor, I need these directions.
I think he did, because one of the characters says,
doctor.
Now doctor.
Maybe.
Hold on. Yeah, Joe says, now doctor. So,
yeah. And
that's when the man runs away, I think.
Maybe. Either way, at least they said the name doctor. But it would be weird if they didn't. But the master's like, did he say that his name was the doctor? And he's like, yeah, that is the name. Ah, yeah. Look, the guy says that's what the girl called him. So they're keeping their continuity. They're keeping it straight.
It's a very tight script, I would say.
It's a very well written script, I think. We were chatting about how good the master's dialogue and stuff was, and how fun Pertwee and that are. It's a very, very well written script, especially for the first part of a 5-part story.
Yeah.
The master tells the man that he needs to get changed because the ceremony is about to begin, and then he goes into a cupboard and he grabs a big old red cloak. And we cut back to the gargoyle. If you remember from earlier in the episode, we set it up, and so we know where they are just from looking at that gargoyle. Lovely bit of cinematic storytelling.
Yeah, it's also a very nice little set as well. And you can hear in the background, you could hear water falling, water dripping from the roof.
Yeah, that was actually one thing that I forgot to mention when we were chatting about the news broadcast. I really enjoy how you hear the echo on his voice.
Yeah.
Sounds like he's in an underground cavern as he's chatting.
The sound design in this episode does a lot to sell what we're looking at, because it's obviously just a BBC studio set, but it feels very much like underneath a church.
Yeah, it's very well put together. We see the master and the cast members of Hot Fuzz in this. If you're confused, they're all wearing big black cloaks. It's very. This is what we were getting at earlier with the greater good.
It's kind of crazy to see this kind of thing happen on tea time television in 1971. What we're getting away with here.
Yeah, I had the same thought. I was like, I'm very surprised that they, and maybe there was a little bit of controversy. I don't know. I doubt it, but I was very surprised that it's such a religiously heavy story.
There is a little bit of censorship going on here, where it's not religion, it's more of sci-fi spaceships kind of stuff, and they had to move underneath. Originally, the Sabbath was supposed to be in the church, but they were like, we don't want to get any complaints, so we'll move underneath the church to avoid complaints. So that's the censorship we're doing, and it feels very well done for its time.
Yeah, I think it being underneath the church adds to it as well, rather than it being above. But
Yeah.
we then cut to the news broadcast with the classic "Quiet, please" from the producer. He says a thing that I've never heard anyone say before. He goes, "Quiet, please. Lots of lovely hush," which I think is a great way of saying "shut the fuck up."
There is a lot of 70s kind of phrases in this episode.
Lots of
I
lovely
love it.
hush. Yeah.
It also kind of, obviously this broadcast leads to nothing, like the BBC Three broadcast, we don't see anything happen. It reminds me of, have you ever heard of Al Capone's Vault?
Nope.
Where it's like it was a big live TV event in the early 90s where they tried to visit, like he was a mob boss, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they try and they explore Al Capone's vault, expecting to see like hidden treasures or dead bodies or shit, and they have this big live event where they try and look for this shit, and all they found was just like empty beer bottles and just dirt.
Oh.
And it was a big failure of an event.
Oh, that sucks.
It very much reminds me of this episode here.
That must have been such a deflating feeling. Like,
The guy who hosted it, his career was ruined.
oh god. But yeah, we're on the news broadcast. It's 1:45, and the BBC Three is airing their spooky spectacular as the demons are on the hunt. And we cut to the doctor. We cut to the doctor very briefly to see that he's driving towards the town still, as we then go to the master as he's lighting a bunch of candles, and there's smoke coming out of vase. There's a whole bunch of shit going on.
Yeah.
They start saying a bunch of like prayer stuff for this ritual that the master's undertaking. A thing that I really like here, as the master's saying these prayers, he's holding up the two horns, the rock on sign, as he's slowly raising his hands, and it's the most metal the master's ever looked.
There's a nice little shot where he's setting a fire in like a little, I don't know what you call that, like a little vase kind of thing, and and the camera kind of like pulls up from the fire to his face, and I think that's a really nice cinematic shot for the time.
Yeah, very nice.
It's a little bit out of focus, but still.
We then cut to Bessie absolutely fucking tearing up the road as they go driving. They almost crash as the world's skinniest tree falls in front of them.
Yes, it's like they leave Bessie out there for like a whole night.
Yeah,
it's like
engine running and all. Like,
it's like the smallest twig. We could easily just move it.
Yeah, but there's no time. They is the doctor and Joe go. They go to pick up the I guess branch that fell in front of them. They pick it up like a centimeter off the ground and go, there's no time. We've got to run. And they run it. I don't understand the point. Why not have them drive into town?
It's just to slow them down so we don't stop the master from doing his evil plans, I
guess. But you could have just extended the road by like 100 meters. And that way they just take whatever.
But yeah, there's a whole load of gibberish in this scene.
Yeah, we cut to the archaeology dig with the professor, and he's like, you're sick of all this chatting, so we'll just get to the dig. Look what we've got here, a stone wall. It's like, phew, that's some fascinating stuff there, isn't it? A stone wall. Whoa, never seen those before. And then we cut away. That's literally the scene. It's him sitting in the dirt going, stone wall. And then we cut away. Back
but unlike last week, it's just a fun little scene to see what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Overground. It's like
it
works.
It's setting up the scene for when the doctor shows up there, rather than just being like filler for no fucking purpose.
Yeah.
We then cut back to the gargoyle and the master and the cast of Hot Fuzz chanting in a circle. And then we cut back to the archaeological dig. There really wasn't much. Again, at this point, it's really setting up stuff for the next episode, with these last 2.5 minutes that are in the episode. And just the thing I was thinking there, as the master and that are all chanting in a circle, they're saying stuff like eco, exile, shlib, shlub. How long until those become Pokemon?
I can't keep track of Pokemon anymore. It's too much.
But anyway, we cut back to the dig as the professor's scraping at the wall. We then see the doctor fucking bombing it, and it's probably the closest to New Who that I've seen Classic Who, this old Classic Who, get, where the doctor's running. He's full of energy and he's full on because Hartnell would never really sprint anywhere because he was an old as fuck man. Like,
yeah.
I don't know about Troughton. I didn't watch much of him, but
Troughton definitely did a lot of running. There's a great. I'll send it to you after we do this episode. But yeah.
yeah.
Joe falls over, by the way.
Does she really? I didn't notice
yes.
that. Oh my gosh, she does. She completely fucking eats dirt.
I think it's actually what happened in real life. She's nearsighted, so I don't think she saw what was underneath her feet.
Oh. It's we then cut to a very nice looking shot of the occult underground standing around a circle with all this mist around them. It's like we've got depth with the stones in the front and the foreground of the camera, and the way that the mist and lighting is. There's like a bit of blue and everything going on with the lights there. It's a very nice looking shot.
The stones in the foreground is definitely added in post, but
100%. They're like weird, like very still, early green screen going on. But definitely, yeah, it's nice.
Looks great, very cinematic for what's a very cheap Doctor Who episode.
The Doctor runs into the archaeological dig, yelling that not to pull the stone because something bad's going to happen. But as I don't think he thought through his plan very much, because he runs down and he basically grabs the professor and assists in pulling down the stone.
He pulls at the professor and the professor falls backwards.
Yeah, pulling on the stone. Yeah, which causes the stone to collapse on top of them, and just all this fucking dust and dirt. I think it's supposed to be.
It's snow.
It's snow.
Yeah, because in the next episode he's frozen. Remember?
Ah, okay. I thought he was frozen because of magic.
There's a plot reason for this, but I can't tell you because you haven't seen the last 3 episodes.
We'll get there. We'll get there. But yes, snow comes falling in through the hole underground, which is spooky, and covers the Doctor and the Professor. We see the wind devastating the table full of cups upstairs on the ground, and blowing over lights and stuff like that. It's quite the gale. We then cut to the Master, who is laughing maniacally while holding up the fucking devil horns. He's so fucking metal.
And I love how the camera pulls back and kind of turns into a Dutch angle. It's a very nice shot. Yeah,
the camera works very good in this episode. We then see the gargoyle with glowing red eyes, which, right? I know we said something about the gargoyle. This isn't it. I thought this was very, as cheesy as it is, the gargoyle gets glowing red eyes and turns its head. I thought that was well done.
Yeah, the polystyrene definitely works a lot better in here
than what shows up a little bit later.
The next cliffhanger.
We then cut to Jo climbing down into the dig, and she sees the Doctor and the Professor, and she's like, "Oh my God, holy fuck, are you okay?" And then we see dirt and snow and stuff fall on top of the Doctor as Jo's like, "Oh no, and then we hear the Doctor Who theme song comes in, and that's the end of part 1 of this story. What do you think of episode 1?
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I think it's a really solid opening to this whole story, and in the 20 minutes that they have, I would say about 15 minutes is exposition, but it's not like boring exposition to listen to. They do a really good job building out this town and the village and the characters in it, whilst also giving you the background to the town.
Oh yeah, having the whole TV device and having the characters discuss their beliefs and ideals is a really good way to kind of bring home the themes of the episode.
Yeah, it's a very solid, and a classic Doctor Who cliffhanger of the Doctor's dead. Uh, how's he gonna get out? Tune in next week. Cliffhanger. And with that, we'll move straight in to episode 2. Episode 2! Let's dive into it on this already extremely long episode. Fuck yeah. Episode 2 begins exactly where the last one left off, as is the theme with Doctor Who, especially classic Doctor Who. The Master is cackling maniacally, as the closed captions wanted to say. As we see the gargoyles turn his head, and then we're going to cut to seeing the Doctor passed out.
The gargoyle turning his head is a great effect, though.
It is. It's a good effect. I wish the gargoyle stayed that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's only a polystyrene or whatever it's called, but it still looks pretty decent.
Yeah, it's definitely, not to foreshadow any spoilers too hard, it's better than spandex, but
we'll get there soon.
We then cut to the soldiers who are watching the rugby, and it's whatever game they're watching. The highlights, remember, that they were betting on.
They're watching the highlights at midnight.
Yeah, and the game was 13-0. So whoever was playing lost hard, really, really bad.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder if that's. I don't watch sports of any kind, so I wonder if that's usual or
in rugby
unusual.
I don't watch rugby much either, but I understand it's a relatively high scoring game. Like it's hard to end with no points, because you get tries and kicking the ball and sports words. Like it's much more energetic than like football, where like 0-0 is like commonplace.
As we're recording, the final World Cup is playing on TV, so I don't care who wins.
I just don't want England to win because I'm Scottish and that's the rules.
That's fair.
The soldiers realize that they were too engrossed with the replay of the rugby and have missed the dig, and they're like, oh fuck, well, quickly change the channel, maybe we're okay. And they cut it just in time to see Joe and the cameraman not helping as he just sits there and films these potentially 2 dead bodies.
He does a nice little there's definitely a cameraman behind the camera because the camera is shaking.
Yeah, and then the BBC Three cut off the program.
I wonder why. It's almost as if they're filming a dead body. Or presumed dead body. Because as we know, the Doctor isn't dead.
Is the Professor dead, though? He never comes back. I assume he's dead.
He's definitely dead.
Yeah. The Doctor killed him.
This is episode 300, by the way, of the entire show. Which
really?
Is, yes.
Jesus. 300 episodes and only on the 3rd Doctor. Built different back then, wasn't it?
That's only because the first 2 Doctors had like 48 episodes per season. It's insane how much they had to go through.
It's just always on TV. Like, that's like most of the year it would have been on TV.
Yeah, they only really took like 6-week breaks.
Oh.
Insane.
Oh. We cut to Joe digging out the Doctor's frozen corpse. And then cut back to the Master, who's praising Azal, who's the Azal's the name of the guy that he summons, isn't it? Or is it just Azal?
Yes. Basically the devil, but in science fiction form.
But not the real devil, because he lives on a planet next to the black hole, as we all know. That's one thing that I did enjoy, which we'll get into, I think, next week. at a certain point, the Doctor goes very Ancient Aliens. Everybody.
Yeah.
So in this scene, the Master is essentially being like, "I'm in charge now," even though he was in charge already, and he's getting his coven to praise him and say that he's in charge, even though they were his coven and he was already in charge. It's a strange scene, but I kind of get why he's doing it, because he's shown that he's got this almighty power of summoning the like winter storm thing that happened suddenly.
Yeah, it also gives a good recap for those of us who missed it the last week. I mean, so
Yeah. Do we ever find out who's in the coven?
no, I think it's just the general
Just
town members that the Master hypnotized, basically.
Yeah, I feel like that there's a potential missed opportunity for there to be like a spy, like for the Master. That because towards the later episodes, not to be too spoilery for next week, the Doctor's working with some of the townsfolk and things like that. If
Yeah,
one of them was a spy or whatever, but
kind of like a Stein character from last
yeah,
week,
yeah, yeah.
where Stein slowly breaks his conditioning. That'd be interesting, but
Just to give some more credence to the coven, because there's a bit where the Master's saying goodbye to them, where he's like, "Go now, and don't tell anybody about your shit or your identity or anything until I summon you back and we're ready to summon this big demon boy." And so it's like, oh, okay, so it's like these people are keeping their identity secret that they're in this coven, but it never actually leads to anything massive. But we then cut back to the Doctor, and he's feeling a bit cold as he's
just a little bit.
yeah, as he's a frozen block of ice.
What do you think about the whole plot line where Joe thinks the Doctor is dead? Like,
I think out of all 5 episodes, this episode is the weakest.
definitely yes.
I think this episode's mainly filler of nothing super important happening.
I'm thinking the exact same thing because it's like we've seen 300 episodes at this point. We know the Doctor isn't going to die, and especially now in 2021 where we've seen like 500 more episodes, we know for sure the Doctor isn't dead here.
Yeah, and this is a whole episode where the Doctor's basically not in it. Like,
Yeah, but I am also when I saw this episode in 2007 when it was repeated on BBC4, I thought it was the weakest one as well. But then, like, just today I was thinking of what children in 1971 must have thought seeing this. Like, they would have known that this was the last story of the season, and the thought that the Doctor wouldn't survive would have been really intense for them. Like, the last savvy kind of kids who don't know what plot lines are or anything like
can't
that.
distinguish fiction from reality.
Yeah, they definitely could have thought that the Doctor was dead and this was like the end of the show or something.
Yeah, I could see that happening, and for the casual TV audience, I can get it, being there to build tension, but it is still the weakest of the 5 episodes. It's plot
definitely.
and structure wise, it's basically filler. But anyway,
and it has the worst cliffhanger, so we'll get to that.
Joe says that they need to get a doctor, and the TV man grabs her and goes, "But that is the Doctor." He doesn't. He says that, look, that he's dead. Don't worry about it. Move on, essentially. Joe's adamant that there has to be a doctor in the village, which we know for a fact there is, because we met the Doctor earlier. Not the Doctor that's frozen, the other Doctor. You know which Doctor I'm talking about. What do you think about the Doctor's frozen appearance? Because I think it's genuinely really good.
Yeah, it looks really like we're going back to last week when we looked at it, like the gore effects. Like, I think Doctor Who has always had like a really good history of having like makeup like this. He looks frozen. It looks realistic. It doesn't look like it's bubble wrap or anything.
Yeah, Doctor Who really like it's rides really high and comes crashing down so often on the costumes. Like this is a really good costume and really good prop effect and stuff like that. And then later on in this story, we'll see some really bad costumes, and some really bad looking practical effects. But
Also, Jon Pertwee is doing a very good job at just staying still.
yeah,
Like,
he is.
I don't think he moves at all. I'm not.
I didn't notice him move at all, but he's probably just taking a nap. Just thank fuck I'm not doing anything in this episode. I'm tired. We then cut to some soldiers from UNIT who are on the telephone trying to find out what's happening at the dig because they were dumb and decided to watch the rugby instead.
You had one job.
Yeah, another blaming other people. Like, you have to tell me, otherwise it's a criminal offense. We then cut back to the doctor with the doctor, but not yet. Both you get it now. Both the doctors are together, and the doctor's saying that the doctor. Oh fuck me! The doctor's saying that the doctor's basically dead. It's too late. He's dead, like the professor's dead. And Joe's not having it. Joe's refusing to believe that he's dead because he's the doctor. He doesn't just die. If he was dead, he'd regenerate. God damn it!
But to be fair, she doesn't know about regeneration, so
Yeah, that's one thing. That's something I always love. The doctor never tells his companions he regenerates, right until it's happening.
I presume a lot of kids at the time didn't know the doctor could regenerate either. Like, this is the second season of a new doctor, so I presume there's a lot of newcomers to this show. So it would have been extra intense for them to lose the doctor.
Yeah, or some maybe people, they've not announced a new doctor on the TV guide or the Sun or some shit like that, and so they're like, oh, if he is dead, maybe the show's over. Maybe this is going to be the last episode. 300 episodes a lot. I'm sure they won't go more than that. Ha ha ha.
and we're currently sitting at what, like 860?
Oh yeah, something ridiculous.
Well, that's not including the thousands of audio dramas.
Yeah, or comics and books.
Our heads hurt.
The doctor then realizes that the frozen doctor is still partially alive, and that they need to get blankets and heat him up, and basically they need to put the doctor in the sink so that he can thaw out.
He also realizes why he's an alien, so yeah.
Yeah, he realizes the doctor has two hearts, which is something that people make discoveries of all the time, and then never seem to be that worried about it.
I do love, we'll get to it, but later on he has a really interesting, just watching him in the background, just reacting to him being alive. It's like, it's really fun.
Has the doctor always canonically had two hearts since Hartnell?
I'm not too sure when the first time it was mentioned. I could Google that.
Yeah, let's do a Google. When was the first time the doctor was shown to have two hearts? Because that to me seems like at least season 3 add-on.
Spearhead from Space, which was Pertwee's first episode. So.
Oh wow! So Jon Pertwee was the first doctor with two hearts.
Yeah.
Well, I mean the other ones technically had it, but they never mentioned it.
It took 7 seasons for them to get to the two hearts, which is interesting.
That is interesting.
But it also took like 6 seasons for them to mention Time Lords.
It's because, Scott, and this might be shocking to some people, but I'm pretty sure they make it up as they go along.
And also perhaps they wanted to keep it a mystery, which is something Chris Chibnall doesn't think is a good idea. Timeless Child, my ass.
But the Timeless Child was a great mystery because they mentioned it in Jodie's first episode and then ignored it for a season and a half. What a great build-up. Joe asks to use the telephone as they wrap up the doctor, and then we cut over to Joe and UNIT having a lovely telephone call where she's like, the doctor's probably gonna die. She asks for the UNIT people to come, and then it cuts to a wall for about half a second as we see the phone line get cut. When I first saw it, I went, what the fuck was that? And then I went, oh, it was the phone line getting cut, right. Do we ever find out who cut the phone line?
Yeah, I was thinking is it there's I definitely think there's not enough time to process the phone line being cut, but I presume it's just a random person the master has hypnotized. He wants the town to be cut off from the outside world. So it makes sense for the telephone wires all to be cut. I presume every telephone wire in the village has been cut as well, but it doesn't really go too much into that. It doesn't really
Yeah.
affect the episode.
Yeah, I mean, they start using radios after this, so it really didn't have much effect on the plot at all.
Like
The
maybe maybe there should have been a scene where somebody who wasn't hypnotized tried to phone somebody from outside and realized that every line has been cut, which added more tension. But here it's just like it doesn't really affect too much.
It's just to end the scene between Joe and the unit guy, so that there isn't like more exposition of knowledge that we already know.
Yeah.
If you're curious though, the man that cuts the telephone wire is wearing a green jacket.
What a great hint.
Who could it be? I don't know who was wearing a green jacket, but keep an eye out. We'll keep an eye out for who wears the green jacket. We then cut to it's suddenly nighttime. As a car drives up past a policeman officer, another policeman officer. This is like the 20th week in a row. uh,
It is the same one from earlier, though.
yeah. And there, it's the TV crew driving away from the archaeological dig, and they're like, "Oh God, so fucking thank God I'm going home." And the police guy's like, "Oh, I love nighttime," and I don't understand the point of the scene.
So I would have liked to see the TV people stay on for a bit to add more to the plot, so we can definitely just cover what's going on in the city to try and ramp up viewers. But it'd be interesting to see how they try to spin what's going on. But I do understand why the scene is here. It's just to show why the outside world won't know about aliens. Because at this time in Doctor Who, aliens was very much a secret to the entire population of Earth. And with a TV station, it would just ruin the whole angle we're going for here.
Yeah, but little did unit know, everyone had the memory of goldfishes, so that they could reveal aliens all they want. Nobody would care and nobody would remember. But as the police officer unwraps a sandwich after closing and locking a gate, we then hyper zoom into the dig where a ginormous pair of red glowing eyes appear. And where have we seen red glowing eyes before? Could it be the gargoyle? Uh, I do think these eyes are a little bit too big to make sense. But you know, whatever. It's a fun wee like spooky monster uh, shot.
It could be Azal as well, or I don't know.
I assume it was the gargoyle because we see the gargoyle come alive later on. You know.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
We then cut to
Our,
the Doctor in bed, and how many episodes have we covered now where the Doctor's been in bed asleep?
she did in
Every
The Woman Who Fell to Earth.
yeah, when he fell to Earth, I feel like is he in bed in the 11th hour at some point?
Don't think so. He does get knocked unconscious. So
There's a
definitely last week.
there's a
At
surprise.
least 2 or 3 times.
There's a surprising amount of Doctor Who where you see the Doctor just in bed,
Yeah.
just chilling. But we see the Doctor having a wee snooze as Joe visits him in bed. One thing that I just noticed here with the soundtrack playing is the soundtrack to this episode's not terrible, but with this whole story, comparing it to last week, I think that they used the soundtrack way better in Resurrection of the Daleks. They were way more reserved with it, so when it came in, it had more impact. Where like this, every scene has music playing.
Yeah, and the music is kind of very 70s, kind of like I don't know what it is. It's synth, kind of.
It's like synth wave, but not like the cool funky stuff you'd get with the 80s. It's not terrible, but but it's definitely overused.
It sounds very alien when all we're seeing is a man lying in bed and a woman turning off a lamp.
The height of sci-fi.
Lady, turn off light. What a concept.
Remarkable. We then cut to the master in his spooky dungeon under the church, as he's dressed in a very, very dapper vicar's outfit, and goes back over to the altar to pray. And then we cut to a police officer. See what I mean about there being a lot of filler in this episode?
Yeah. but again, like, people coming into this probably would, maybe there was a chance we didn't see the week before episode, so it's all new to them. They need to just be updated about what's going on.
That's possible, but I have a fun bit of trivia for you.
Yes.
Do you know what the viewing figures were for this whole 5-part series?
It was very high. It was very high. I know that was around 8 or 9 million.
The first episode got 9.1 million, or around that. This episode dropped all the way to 8 million. Then the remaining 4 after that consistent 8 million as well. So between episodes 1 and 2, there was 1 million people that went, fuck this. But then it stayed consistently with 8 million.
But this episode was replayed around Christmas time of that year, and it got around 10 million in the ratings, which was huge.
Yeah.
It was a huge success, and they started airing, you know, the omnibus, where they put together all the episodes of a story, like, as one continuous movie. They started doing that almost every year, up until, like, early 80s. So it was a huge success.
Interesting. That's like David Tennant Doctor numbers, getting 10 million. Hoocha. We then see the police officer with a look of panic across his face as their heavy, vibrating footsteps bombarding their way towards him.
The shaking of the camera doesn't indicate footprints. Like, it should shake to imply that footsteps rather than just shake for no reason. But there is a nice touch of having a shadow overcast him. Mm-hmm. It's nice and simple.
And he looks up in terror. What is he looking up to?
The devil, or whatever.
Is he just out and about
presume.
kicking about? Because he doesn't show up till like episode 5 or the end of 4, like properly when the master summons him. I just assumed all this was the gargoyle, but the gargoyle is not like 7.5 feet tall.
I mean, in the next scene, you get to see footprints. They're like hoof prints. So it definitely is.
Just went to stretch his legs before the master summoned him.
Yeah.
But we cut back to the master, who's looking very happy with himself as he walks away out of his dungeon. So yeah, he probably summoned the devil to fuck up that police officer, is what I'm getting from there. As we then cut to a helicopter as it's flying on round.
There is 2 dead people at this point. Or 3 dead people at this point of the story, but we haven't seen the dead bodies of 2 of them. Compare that to last week's episode, where 9 people get brutally murdered within the first second.
Yeah, there was a lot of death in the last one. One thing that I did notice that becomes pretty apparent in these later episodes, though, is this episode uses guns just as much as last week's one. There's so much gun violence in this episode. Everyone's shooting. They pull out a bazooka at one point. Like, the violence in this episode is still very much there. It's just not against actual people.
Yeah, but that makes it somewhat less violent because it's against fictional beings, whereas last week we just see humans getting gunned down.
Mm-hmm. It's still strange seeing so much weaponry in Doctor Who, though.
Yeah. But next week we'll see more. Very realistic next week, or in 3 weeks, whatever time.
Yeah.
with the TV movie.
Yeah, that would be in 2 weeks' time, because next week is part 3. Fuck. Next week is part 2. The week after that is the news.
Yeah.
and then it's the movie. So that's the schedule. In the helicopter, they see just enormous footprints. Not footprints. What would you call those?
Hooves. Yeah.
Hooves. Yeah, hoof prints across the road into the fields and stuff. Very conveniently, the hoof print missed the road so that they didn't have to draw on the road and they could instead just cut down the crops. But it works really well. It's a very nice looking, cool looking shot.
Yeah, it looks great. Just this episode is directed really, really well.
The helicopter people decide that they want to go and check out the footprints. Who's in this helicopter? Do you know? Because I don't remember their names.
Benton and Yates. Benton is the guy in the blue one, in the blue, whatever you call it.
Flight suit.
And the other one is Yates.
The helicopter lands and they go and check out the hoof print, which now looks way smaller.
Yeah.
It's gone from being so big you can view it from a helicopter and it's taken up a massive chunk of the field to being like 30 centimeters big.
I presume the last shot was of a miniature set, while this shot is also real life. So I presume they couldn't do a big hoof print because of health and safety reasons, but I guess the county wouldn't allow them to basically vandalize the grass or the farm or whatever.
Perhaps, but at that point, like get a big piece of cardboard, stick that on top of the grass.
True.
I'm sure there's ways around it. It's very silly. Or, if you were looking for a canonical way to justify this, we see the devil grow and shrink. So this.
Yes, I was just thinking that.
What they've done is they've flown over all the big ones, and they've landed at the point where he was starting to shrink back down again because he decided to shrink as he was walking, so he could do a funny dance, and that's why it happened.
Yes. But instead of wanting to find the Doctor and Joe, I think Benton just wants to have breakfast. It's a total mood.
Yeah, so they decide that they need to get going into the helicopter, and Benton, you said his name was?
Yes.
He's like, come on, we need to go, or the orange guy's like, come on, we need to go, and Benton's like, for breakfast? And he's like, no, to see the Doctor and Joe. God, fuck me. We then cut to Joe, who is just looking down, I assume, at the Doctor.
I presume she's been asleep all night, just sitting by the Doctor's bedside. Just watching over her.
But
watching over him, I mean.
She's woken up by the sound of the helicopter as it lands outside of the pub that they're in. Or I suppose it's more of a tavern or a B&B since there's a bed upstairs. But
it's a very kind of small county kind of area.
We then see the two unit members get out of the helicopter. And one of them is like, oh, well, there's the pub. And obviously
again.
Yeah, obviously because that's where the Doctor and Joe are, but it, you can read it as, well, let's go get a pint, right? There's the pub, we're here, come on.
He definitely doesn't give a shit. Like from the beginning of the episode where he's watching football instead of the dig.
Really, he should be fired. He should definitely be fired. But the unit soldiers and Joe go into the pub, and not Benton, the other guy, orange jacket. What's his name? Yates. He's asking about the Doctor because he cares about his work, and Joe's telling him that he's upstairs, he's doing a little bit better, but he's still fast asleep, like he will be for a lot of this episode.
For at least half of it, yeah. And then Benton immediately wants to leave.
Yeah, so they're in the pub, and Joe's like, "It's safe in the pub, but outside, it's horrible." She uses the word devilish to describe the goings on, and then Benton walks up and he's like, "If you don't need me, I'll fuck off." We then cut to the brigadier in bed.
He's probably hung over from drinking all night at the gala as well.
Yeah. On the phone, getting caught up on everything. It's a lot of. I think this episode's really struggled a lot with recapping everything constantly.
Yeah, but I think it works just because the brigadier is so deadpan, except when he finds out his helicopter has been taken. I love it. It's the only thing he cares about is helicopter.
Yeah, it is great in that. So he's on the phone talking really nonchalantly, like, "Yeah, the doctor's out. Okay, yeah, contact this person. Oh, you can't. I guess you can't contact these people either." And then the one thing that makes him sit up is when he hears about his helicopter being taken. It's brilliant. We then cut to is that Benton walking down the street here?
Yep. Yep.
Benton walking through the graveyard, which, as we know, is a perfectly safe place to be in this episode. No one's been murdered there at all. As we hear cries for help from a voice.
And the voice belongs to Hawthorne. It's a bit interesting that the master didn't think to gag her or anything.
Or lock the box.
Yeah.
So Benton runs into the church where the screams of help are coming from Hawthorne. He immediately turns left because the box is right next to the front door. Opens the box, and oh, there she is. The master, if anything, he wanted her to be found. Like,
she could have left the box herself, I think. The door's unlocked. The box is unlocked.
Yeah. She's only like got her hands tied. She could push that up, climb out.
Yeah.
She could have easily escaped if she wanted to.
What an odd. The master didn't really get rid of her at all. Weird.
I love the very 70s, like late 60s, early 70s Britishness of when they're introducing each other. You know, it's like, "Oh, I'm Olive Hawthorne." It's like, "Oh yeah, I'm Sergeant Benson," whatever. Then they shake hands, and when they shake hands, it's, "How do you do?" "Oh, how do you do?" From both of them.
Yeah, it's very proper BBC English, isn't it?
Yeah. They go to leave the church, but then stop as they see. I assume it's the master because
it's Garvin who knocked, I think, Hawthorne out and tied her in a box. Apparently.
Well, he should also be fired for not doing his
he
job.
really should.
But he's walking up to the church,
and they decide to hide from him.
Yeah.
So
even though they see him walking away from the door that they're at.
Also, Benton is a soldier. He could easily just.
Yeah. Why is he listening to this civilian tell him what to do?
But I guess we do have to lead into the masters.
Yeah, they go to hide and inadvertently end up in the master's big underground dungeon. And this is where Hawthorne notices the gargoyle's gone.
Dun dun dun.
God, I bet it's gonna be terrifying when we see that guy again. But the master's lackey, whose name I've immediately forgotten, Garth.
Garvin.
Garvin. Garvin Marenghi's dark place. Not. He comes down because I assume he must have heard them go, "Oh, the gargoyle's gone," as they hide behind a pillar. He
sort of steps in the room, looks right and left, and then just leaves.
Yeah, because he doesn't want to do his job. He's like, he definitely heard something, so he can't justify not going in, but he doesn't really want to look, so he's like, no one's here.
But then he does come back in like 10 seconds.
Benton goes to touch the weird like square symbol that the master has on the floor of his dungeon that Hawthorne describes as a sign of evil, and she shoves him out of the way before he can touch it. Otherwise, who knows what would happen? He'd probably die.
I don't know what would have happened.
I think someone touches it at some point, and they like
Yeah,
explode.
Benton gets knocked out by it or something
Yeah,
after this.
but it's an evil symbol. Don't fuck with it.
Pretty much, yeah.
And this is where Hawthorne puts together that Magister is a name that you get given if you're the leader of the evil black magic coven. It's you can't be a vicar with that type of name. There's only one reason you'd have that name, is if you were in charge of a whole cult of people.
And then we do get an interesting bit of real life trivia about about the time where they actually stopped the outlaw of witchcraft, which was in 1951, which is insane to think about. 20 years before this episode,
Yeah,
they would still prosecute people for alleged witchcraft.
yeah. Time is horrible. So like the other day, I was like yesterday, I was watching a film called There Will Be Blood,
Yeah.
with Ewan. Very good film. It was like the second time I'd watched it, and we were watching it, and then I had the horrible realization that, uh, Queen Victoria, her reign ended in 1901. The Victorian era ended in the early 1900s, and that completely broke my fucking brain, because when you think of Victorian times, you're like, oh, so long ago in the past. It's so far away. It really wasn't that long ago. Just so much has changed since then. Like,
Yeah, it's insane. So basically, the last person convicted of witchcraft was on September 1944.
wow.
1944.
What did they do?
Um, Her name was Jane Rebecca York from London, and she was convicted on 7 counts of pretending to cause the spirits of deceased persons to be present.
So she wasn't even a real witch.
No,
She
she
was
was just
pretending.
pretending.
So what?
She basically had to pay a fine of I don't know how much, but it's
Wow.
insane to think about.
Although, I kind of get it, because it stops people being like saying that they're like psychics or whatever, and then using that to take advantage of grieving and struggling people. Where they're like, oh yeah, I can talk to your dead grandfather or your dead brother or some shit like that, when really they can't, and they're just using it as a graft to get money. But on the
Yeah.
other hand, people should be free to do kind of what they want. So it's I can see the side to each argument, and also, witchcraft for a long time was used as an excuse to punish and kill women who were, just women. So, like,
Yeah, but it is insane how the act just continued until 1951.
yeah, yeah.
And it was later adopted by South Africa in 1957 and still continues to this day, so
Just
don't
be
practice.
don't be a witch in South Africa. Very strangely, Hawthorne says, standing next to the altar where the master works, she goes, "We should be safe now." I don't know why she would think she would be safe, literally in the base of the bad guy, but
Yeah, it's where most of the dark magic happens, basically.
it's
Like,
literally where they summon Satan.
it's weird.
But Garvin's like, ha ha ha, that's what you think, fool. I found you. I loved this scene so much. So Garvin's holding a double barrel shotgun, and he tells them to, get a shift on, move it, and come on, because he's going to take them prisoner. And Benton does the lowest spinning kick ever. He definitely didn't stretch before having to do this. I think I could do what he did to kick that out.
Yeah.
It's a very unimpressive spin kick.
But we are looking at stunt work in 1971 on a TV budget with no stunt double, with like maybe 1 day to rehearse. It's not that bad of a
Yeah,
stunt
all
fight,
I'm
is
saying,
it?
all I'm saying is stretch out that hamstring before you do it. Just get a little bit limber. You have to do it. This leads to a struggle with the shotgun as they're both pulling and yanking on it. Garvin does a pretty sick throw off Benton, throwing him over his shoulder and slamming him to the ground. and then it looked like he was going to stab him with the shotgun for a moment,
Yeah.
before getting kicked in the chest. They struggle some more, and I just realized that Hawthorne was standing in the worst position. She very could have got shot there. They're struggling with the gun, and just the barrel of the gun is pointing at Hawthorne for quite some time.
Yeah, at least hide behind a pillar or something. It goes back to last week when we were being cornered by Daleks and we just don't hide. We just
Yeah,
back up into nothingness.
I think I just thought about as well. There's a lot of fighting in this story. Like,
There's a lot of fighting in the Third Doctor era in general. Like in maybe like 12 episodes, he's gonna have a sword fight with the Master.
and I suppose, since they can't travel in time and space and stuff, they have to find a way to climax all the stories, and so like hand-to-hand combat and things like that are less quote-unquote violent. There's no guns or murder that come from it.
Yeah, certainly this era is more like James Bond than typical Doctor Who. And it's definitely a lot more action. Like the Doctor knows karate, for example. he knocks several people out unconscious in several episodes. It's great.
Yeah, Jon Pertwee's Doctor and his era of Doctor Who is really unlike any other era of Doctor Who ever was or probably will be again.
There's an episode where the Doctor walks into a room drinking a cup of tea. There's a bad guy there. He knocks the bad guy unconscious and he just drinks his cup of tea like nothing happened. It's great.
Fantastic. Then suddenly there's this weird high-pitched noise, and Benton's brain begins to explode. Oh, I know why it's happened. It's because he stood on the evil square.
The evil square, but it doesn't really get explained.
No, it's just there, and it'll make your brain hurt. It'll go if you stand on it.
It might be the spawn point for Azal, maybe.
Maybe.
It's some sort of like alien technology that only Azal can stand near.
Yeah, if you stand on it, you get punished for trying to spawn kill. Hawthorne helps him get off the square before he feels any more pain, and Garvin, now holding the shotgun again, tells him to get the heck up. And Hawthorne's like, "What? Can't you see? He's almost unconscious."
It's very typical for Doctor Who just to have an unconscious person. The villain's like, "Why don't you get up, unconscious person? Get up!" and whoever's standing near the unconscious person is like, "He's unconscious. He can't get up." That happens a lot of times.
That's interesting. I wonder if that's simply to one, explain what's going on to some people, and two, to just pad out that runtime with just that extra like 30 seconds more so they can hit the 22-minute mark.
Like I can remember it happening in the first Dalek episode where I think it was Ian who was knocked unconscious, and the Dalek's like, "Why don't you get up?" And then Ian obviously can't get up because he's like kind of unconscious. And then the Doctor and Barbara have to help him up.
Yeah, there's a lot of helping up of unconscious people.
There's a lot of there's like 3 unconscious people in this episode, or I think Joe gets knocked unconscious next episode.
Yeah.
And last week when Tegan got knocked out by a Dalek plunger.
Yeah, noticing a lot of patterns in the structure of classic Who. But Hawthorne helps the half unconscious Benton as Garvin leads them out, and we cut to the Doctor in bed getting very rudely woken up by what's his name?
Yates.
By Yates. But they can't wake up the Doctor, and Joe's like, the Doctor, the Doctor, he was like that we can't move not the Doctor. So they're like, we just have to wait. And when he said that, when I was watching it, I was like, cool. This is an episode of sitting around and just waiting for stuff to happen. Nothing's happening in this episode. Yes. We then cut to the church where there's some sort of nuclear explosion happening outside the front doors.
Yeah, the filter on top of the screen doesn't look great, does it?
No, it's not superb, but there's a high breeze blowing, and this for people that haven't seen the episode, like orange and yellow pulsating ball in the center of
Yeah,
the frame. That's like semi-transparent, so you can see through it. And Garvin starts shooting at the sky at some point. I'm pretty sure here.
yeah. I presume it's a point of view perspective of the gargoyle. I must be the gargoyle because he
Yeah,
then gets shot at back when he just vanishes.
yeah. Maybe the gargoyle's flying,
Yeah,
even
but
though
we never
we
see
never.
because of budget.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, Garvin dies a death. I thought his death was very confusing to me because he shoots the shotgun off, and then he gets zapped and he vanishes, and then the tree next to him catches on fire, but the tree wasn't
Yeah,
really close to where he was. Like,
yeah. I presume like if he just moved towards the right just a little bit, like around,
yeah,
that would have been a better shot.
yeah. Just take a step. Just take a
But
step, Gar. Maybe that was the plan originally, but they only had so much time, and he was just missed his mark slightly.
I presumed they like used a massive crane to get this shot, and maybe moving towards that direction. There was something in the way, or like a tree or something.
Yeah, who knows? But it makes for some slightly unclear of like
Yeah,
why the fuck did the tree catch on fire? But
it is 1971, and they had like 2 weeks to shoot this entire story, so cut them some slack. It's well directed, I think,
we then
in
cut
general.
we then cut to the doctor in bed, and right, there's like this big golden filter on. It does look like he's regenerating. You could be easily convinced that he was like, oh no, the doctor's changing, if you were just looking at that
Yeah,
scene.
and his face does go like I don't know what you would say it is. It goes like
Incredibly white and hard to
yeah.
distinguish the features of.
It's a lot. It is the effect we use for regeneration, especially like later on. Yeah,
Hmm. But it's just it's he's not actually regenerating. It's still, I think we're still in the perspective of the gargoyle, or we're seeing the magical
we're ju-
effects of it. There's like this big storm happening that's changing the color of everything at the moment.
yeah we're just seeing the effects of a big heat wave, which I guess is the only way you can communicate heat happening in the 1970s. I can't think of any other way.
Yeah, other than someone like going, "Whoo, it's hot." We then cut to the dungeon, and we see something scanning the floor and looking at the evil square that we were looking at before, and then super zooms into it. And we then cut back to the doctor in bed, and we see Joe and Yates
Yes.
all thrown about the floor from the storm that has now just passed. And the doctor sits up. I love this moment. The doctor sits up and goes, "Eureka!"
I miss the Doctor being basically a scientist. It's something that should have been carried on a lot more.
Yeah, that's what I really liked in Professor Doctor with Capaldi. Was
Yeah.
he was actually like an intellectual, and teaching and smart, and he had the chalkboard and stuff where he would do things with it.
Yeah, the last time we really saw the scientific side of the Doctor was in the Jodie's first episode where she makes the sonic screwdriver. I don't
Something
think
they
we've
really need to bring back with Jodie, because as we discussed in that, she's great when that's like a really cool like handy doctor, engineer
Yeah.
doctor. Like,
I love her. I loved her excitement just building the sonic screwdriver and her face reactions, and her goggles were great.
yeah, her goggles are great. But yeah, the doctor tends to be like either action hero man or posh adventurer.
Yeah, and when he does introduce like a new a device or something, it's just basically he takes it out of his pocket, and then we don't see him build it or really understand what he's doing.
He does that a bit in the last episode and in the later episodes with the remote control for Bessie.
Yeah,
That's just
but
something he had in his pocket, but but they explain what it is at least.
yeah, and it at least comes back into the episode
Yeah.
later on next week.
We then cut to the master welcoming Azal very briefly, as we then cut away again to I guess he's like a milkman. Yeah, he
I
is.
think so, yes.
I think he is a milkman. Look at that. As he's trying to drive towards the town, but almost crashes into the sign because of the big old storm. It's because he's at the outskirts of Devil's End, where there's now the big heat bubble across the town, so he can't get in, and the magic and the heat and the wind is so loud on his ears. And his car explodes in a pretty nice looking practical effect. Doctor Who
Yeah,
does explosions very well.
as we said last week, like we really do. Like, I wonder how much money it costs to blow up that van in the 1970s.
Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely be like an old van that's no longer used
Yeah.
that they could get cheap. Don't know how much it would cost to rig the explosions. I don't know what 70s money would be like. I'm gonna guess it cost a nickel and a dime.
And I presume it took a lot of time to set up as well.
Yeah,
It really does look great.
It does look great, and the sign catches on fire a little bit.
Yeah.
Well. We then cut to the Doctor back in the pub, as he's up and about the place, and Joe's like, "You sure you're doing okay, Doctor?" And the Doctor's like, "Shut the fuck up, Joe. I'm fine." So the Doctor at this point is basically explaining to Joe and Yates that he's pretty much got everything figured out already, and Yates is like, "Oh, well, tell us." And the Doctor's like, "No, not yet. I'm not going to tell you yet. There's 3 episodes still."
I do love the Doctor just waiting to test his hypothesis, but it's very scientific of him, just to be absolutely sure he's on the right track.
But he'll need to test it again afterwards, and then do like a double blind test to make sure that his first 2 results were accurate. So we're gonna be here a while.
To be fair, he does try to explain his theory at the end of the episode, but then he gets interrupted by something we'll cover later on.
I did enjoy how many times he got interrupted. But we then see the Doctor, not the Doctor, the other Doctor, come through and be like, "Doctor, I'm not the Doctor. I thought you were dead." And the Doctor's like, "Not that the other Doctor." He's like, "No, I'm quite okay."
I do love just the look of confusion on the town Doctor's face. He's like, huh?
Yeah, just pure bewilderment. Just
like it's potentially the biggest medical mystery the entire planet has ever seen.
Yeah.
And he's just like, he doesn't get time to figure out what the hell's going on.
But then Hawthorne and Benton are burst into the pub. Everyone rushes over to help Benton because he's so hurt and injured. And Hawthorne describes him as a very heavy young man, as she's completely exhausted from carrying him. Yates, is it Yates? Yeah, I think it's Yates. No, it's who else says that? Who says that line?
What line?
I'll get a doctor. The Doctor? What? What's happening here? The Doctor says, "I'll get a doctor."
Hold on.
Is that the Doctor?
Is it the Doctor? There's a lot of doctors
maybe
going
he's
on in
the pub owner?
Maybe he is. That's probably a good bet.
Yeah, so we're going to say the pub owner / doctor says that he's going to go find a doctor. And the Doctor's like, I am a doctor, as he checks up on Yates, and he's like, "Oh, he's fine. Get him some nice sweet tea." The Doctor then says to Hawthorne that it's a real shame that people weren't listening and believing her before, which Hawthorne takes to be like, "Haha, it's because magic is real. I was right all along." And we then cut to the Master on the telephone as he's finding out that everyone has survived.
But okay, so the telephone lines are working then.
Yeah.
So the telephone lines.
Maybe they cut
earlier.
all the telephone lines that are making calls outside of the village.
Maybe.
So that you can only make local calls.
Again, it's still not communicated clearly enough.
It's not communicated at all.
and adds absolutely nothing either way.
Yeah.
I do love whenever a master's on screen, we have to have the music go dun 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 dun.
Just in case you forgot who he was.
And we have to do a slow zoom in as well, just to make sure that you know he's evil.
Yep. And we then cut back to the doctor and everyone in the pub, where Hawthorne's going on about how Benton was hurt by elementals and that she saw the devil and blah. And the doctor's like, "What? What?"
I do like that the doctor wants to hear out what she's saying. Like, just hear, like, you saw the devil, what did he look like? Rather than call her crazy outright.
And then he calls her crazy. Or he's like, I believe you that about the danger you were in, but I think you're utterly mistaken, were his words at describing it being the devil.
There is still a dignity of respect there, rather than just saying, like, you're a crazy old woman, just go away.
He's having a civil discussion rather than like just shouting.
The days before the internet.
And Hawthorne's adamant that it was the devil because of the coven that's in the village. And this is where the doctor finds out about the master, and that Hawthorne's... I'm surprised it takes like to the end of episode 2 before the doctor finds out about the master, which is surprising.
I also love how the camera goes from like a wide shot into a close-up, just as he realizes, it's the master.
Yeah, it's
such a great shot.
Incredibly fast zoom into a close-up of the doctor's face. As he's
also again, the master could have called himself anything. And then, like, he could have called himself Bob Jones. I mean, the doctor would have been never known.
Yep. Yeah, he could have called... Oh, fuck. What's the name the master gave himself in The Sound of Drums?
John Saxon?
Yeah.
Was it John? Yeah.
I don't know if it's John. It's definitely Saxon.
But yeah, like, calling himself Latin for master.
Yeah.
It's just... It's like... Him calling himself a master is like the worst part of any plan he has.
I did like the line here, though, where the doctor's figured out that the Magister is the master. And he's like, of course, I should have known. And Joe's like, what is it, doctor? And the doctor turns to her and is like, do you fail Latin as well as science, you dumb bitch? Like,
it's a very outdated line as well. It's like, no one studies Latin at all anymore.
No one studies Latin anymore. My mum studied Latin, I think. I think she was among the last to do it.
Yeah, I think it ended in the late 70s, early 80s.
It would have been the 80s it ended, because my mum was born in the late 70s, so...
So young. But it is insane to think, like, I've never heard people speak Latin or share their experiences with learning Latin. Like,
yeah, it's like dissecting a frog. It's so off its time, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
it doesn't happen anymore. But we find out that magister is the Latin word for master, and the music sting kicks in like da 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 da, even though we've known that the master was the magister this whole time. It's not a revelation to us at all.
So when I was doing notes for episode 1, I picked up on magister. I was like, oh, I'm going to Google what this means, and I found it, and I was like, I'm going to be so smart when I present this in the podcast. And then this scene happens, and I'm like, oh fuck, I can't sound smart anymore.
We then cut to the road as the milkman stops oncoming cars, and he's like, you can't get any further because there's this big weird fucking heat bubble around the town. Your car will explode into 1 billion pieces. And inside the car we discover it was dun dun dun
the Brigadier.
Yeah. Because he doesn't have his helicopter. So but it's coming up to, I think, my favorite effect in this whole story, which is this heat bubble effect. I think it's so fucking well done.
Yeah, and also you get a nice little black line on the road, like a little burn mark.
Like scorch mark for where the bubble is, yeah.
Which comes in great use later on. I think next episode. I've lost track now.
Yeah, but this is basically where the Brigadier and that are checking out if there even is a bubble, and they like stick a stick in. The stick instantly like explodes and catches fire, and it looks so cool. I was so impressed with this effect.
Yeah, it looks great. And also, the dome reminds me of a Simpsons movie.
Yeah.
Or Under the Dome by Stephen King, who started writing the concept a year after this episode came out. Coincidence? And his son almost got into the show, but he got rejected for being American, which is a shame.
It is a shame. I get it though. You know, Doctor Who's very British. I enjoy it when it's mainly Brits on the show.
Yeah, but like it was invented by a Canadian. I'm just saying you could have more American writers or whatever. Especially Stephen King's son. I'm sure he must have a lot of good traits as a writer.
Yeah, he's written a lot of books. He's written a lot of books with Stephen King.
Haven't read a single one.
Really? I've not read any of his son's books. I've read a couple of Stephen King books.
The only Stephen King book I tried to read was Under the Dome, coincidentally. I got like 100 pages in, and that book is 1,100 pages, and I'm like, nah, fuck this.
Yeah, his books are hard to get through. I read Cell, which was like, I think like fucking like 500, 600 pages. And it was very much off its time. It's from like the early 2000s, and basically people's mobile phones turn them into zombies. And I was like, oh, I wonder what he's trying to say. And I listened to it on audiobook because there was no way in hell I could have read that book because it's massive.
Isn't that audiobook like 48 hours?
It's a long audiobook, yeah. But the guy that does it does a very good job with it. It's the only audiobook I've ever actually listened to because I much prefer reading a physical book.
That's fair, you nerd.
The Brigadier and that decide that they'll see how far this heat dome covers the village and if they can get in through the south. As the milkman looks at his van's like, oh, I'm getting fired.
I hope not. I wonder if it's like a spin-off of him after this.
Let's
like
get Big Finish on the phone. Let's get them on the phone. Milkman.
Solving alien mysteries wherever he goes.
Yep. Whenever he delivers milk to a new door, there's some sort of alien encounter.
I would actually listen to that, to be honest.
We then cut to the Doctor and Joe moving the tree. So I guess that it falls within the village limits.
Yeah, but also going back to like the tree is very, very, very small. We could have just done
they could have moved it earlier.
And they needed a saw to take off some of the branches.
Yeah, but they could have moved it earlier. But they didn't. They decided to run into the town. But the fact that they're still not getting hurt by the heat bubble proves they were already in the town. So moving it really wouldn't have been an inconvenience. It's not like they were like, oh, we need to get. We're still 5 minutes out. We need to fucking run. They were like, oh, we're here. We can move this stick and just drive in and park the car.
Yeah, but they did need to hurry to get to the dig site.
I guess it's still a bit silly.
Yeah, but moving the tree wouldn't have taken that much time, to be honest.
Yeah, especially since they're already in the village.
Yeah.
Like, it would have taken less time to move it and then drive than it would have to run.
But I think a character does say it's like a 10-mile radius.
Really?
So I'm not sure at what point that was said, but I feel like it was a 10-mile radius.
The
I'm not entirely sure.
The sign that says to the Devil's End only has 1 mile on it, though. It's like pointing to Devil's End. It's like it's a 1 mile away.
Maybe I misheard or something, but I guess we'll find out later.
Yeah. But the Doctor and Joe move the tree branch out the way and climb back into Bessie. We then cut back to the Brigadier driving his car. to go to the south of the town, where they're checking if the heat wave is still there, which it very much is. One thing I did appreciate here is the sound design for whenever they're next to the heat wave is that constant like whirling of
I've
the
also
wind.
There's also like one of those kind of, I don't know what you call it, but it's kind of like a wavy effect on the screen that indicates
Heat,
heat.
yeah, like the heat waves, I guess.
Yeah.
Heat, the heat.
I presume it's like a special effect and not just the tape warping or anything like that, but it's a nice subtle special effect to add to the believability.
Yeah. And this was another effect that I really liked. The Brigadier picks up a small stick, chucks it, and when it hits the dome, it explodes like a grenade, and it looks really cool.
Yeah, it does, and obviously it's like they stopped filming, had them stand still, and then did the explosion.
Let off a smoke bomb.
But usually when that happens, you see the actors move somewhat, but this time you don't see it. It isn't noticeable. It looks really solid.
Yeah, it's very, very well done. The Brigadier then says, "But we have to try and raise the Doctor." I assume he means warn him about the bubble, but I like the idea of it. It then cuts to the Brigadier and this guy he's with, like nursing the Doctor. Like, we gotta raise him, make him a good, strong boy. We've got. But the Brigadier's on the radio to the Brigadier's on the radio to. Are you okay?
Sorry.
The Brigadier's on the radio to fuck me. Take a minute.
I just can't stop picturing it.
The am I gonna manage to say the sentence?
Okay, go.
The Brigadier gets on the radio with Yates as Yates catches the Brigadier up on the past events of the last 2 episodes again, and in a lovely scene of exposition I love, the Brigadier quickly lists off everything that's happened in the last 2 episodes.
And he just acts like it's very normal shit, like...
Well, you know, this is episode 22 of this season, so he's pretty much got it at this point. He's like, yeah, okay, more.
like he's basically being told that the devil has risen or whatever, and he recites it back to him as if somebody left like a trail of milk at his door or something. And also notice how Yates leaves the master to the very last sentence. Like that should be the leader.
We then cut to the master again, as he talking to himself, perfectly naturally, as everyone does all the time, about the Doctor somehow surviving yet again, and he uses this to summon. I think he summons the gargoyle. I think that's what he's doing here.
Yeah, I think that's it. I can't tell because the sound effects is very odd, but I hear flapping kind of. I think that's flapping at least. Flapping of the wings.
And then he looks out the window upwards. So yeah, it's probably the gargoyle flying again.
Again, it's very weird sound effects.
Yeah. We then cut to the Doctor and Bessie just tearing down the track. Absolutely zooming the car. They get out and they find the police officer who has got the sign collapsed on top of him. He never got to enjoy his sandwich because he was so brutally killed.
And a nice touch, I think the police officer looks very pale, which I don't think we would have gone through the effort like in Resurrection when there was a dead body.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell that he's been dead for a couple of hours at least.
Yeah, it is. It's a pretty decent looking corpse. The Doctor says that he's going to go into the dig site, and Joe says that, okay, cool, I'm going to come with you. They go into the dig to investigate the goings on, and we pan up, zoom in Oh no, the music starts to swell. There's something sinister about to come over the hill. And then we see it. The gargoyle. And the gargoyle, if you're curious and haven't seen the episode, imagine a grey spandex suit, uh, a shit mask sticking its tongue out, and really bad looking wings, and a guy going,
Yeah, so interesting fact, this is based on one of the gargoyles at Notre Dame. So that's why it has its tongue sticking out at least, but I think they could have chosen some kind of less silly face.
It's very silly, and the costume itself, especially in the broad daylight where they always shoot it, where you can see every little nook and cranny, you can see the guy's skin, you can see the zips. It's probably one of the worst looking costumes I've seen.
Yeah, they could have definitely shot this with like some backlight to make it look more like a silhouette kind of.
Yeah.
That would have looked good at least.
Just darken it a bit to try and make it look a bit more like stone and a bit less like a guy in a suit jumping around the place.
It is interesting to see this compared to the Weeping Angels. 35 years later, how realistic Weeping Angels are in comparison.
Yeah, makeup and budgets come a long way since then.
Just TV in general.
That being said, though, I still hated it when you saw the Weeping Angels move.
Oh yeah, Moffat loves to break his own rules.
Yeah. And it didn't look great when you saw the Weeping Angels move, but
no,
it looked better than this at least.
Yes.
But we then cut to the doctor in the archaeological dig, and he's like, we're all in incredible amounts of danger here. The whole world is in peril. It's another world-ending event. I'm sure that this will have consequences that'll doom us all. I'm not the biggest fan of world-ending events, but hey, whatever.
It is Doctor Who. You have to have the world ending at some point.
I guess, it's the season finale story as well, so you want to do it on something big. I just never find there to be much tension in world-ending stories.
Yeah, especially the world is going to be safe at the end of it.
Yeah, the world's going to be fine. Whereas if it's like this one dude's in trouble or the village is in trouble, I'm like, I could see you wiping out a village, especially if it's called Devil's End.
Yes.
We then cut to the gargoyle. Oh, I laughed when I first saw it. I'm laughing again as it's walking.
It looks like a kid in a Halloween costume just running down a hill.
Genuinely, they're running down the hill, and you can tell at a certain point they started picking up more speed than they expected to.
And I can see his head just kind of look down at his feet, making sure he doesn't trip over anything.
Oh, it's so silly looking. But we then cut to the doctor wiping away something covered in dirt, and he's like, "Oh, it's metal. And Joe describes it as looking like a model spaceship, and the doctor's like, "You're right, but it's not a model. It's a spaceship." And we discover that the whole tomb that they've been digging out has been a spaceship that's been buried under the ground this whole time. There's a great moment. The doctor tells Joe to try and pick up the thing they were looking at. She's like, "Oh, I can't. It's like it's welded to the ground or something." The doctor's like, "No, it's because it weighs 750 tons." And Joe's like, "What? Come on, stop kidding around," as if the doctor would be kidding around at this moment. And he's like,
especially if this incarnation of the Doctor is mostly serious when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's not with Tom Baker kind of Doctor, with Patrick Troughton kind of Doctor who plays practical jokes. He's a very serious Doctor. You should believe him.
Yeah, and the doctor tells Joe that, "You want me to be serious? Okay, I'll explain everything to you. 100,000 years ago," and then we cut away to the gargoyle hopping and skipping its way into the archaeological dig, and we see it snarl, and it interrupts the doctor before he can explain what happened 100,000 years ago. I guess we'll never find out. As it backs the doctor into a corner, and I just realized as it lifts its head there, you can see a bit of human skin on his neck.
Oh my god! I need to. pause this and
It's
watch.
very,
Hold on.
very briefly.
I missed it. God damn. You need to send me a picture.
I'll try and catch it. It's so fast. Ah, fuck. It happens literally so quick. I'm pausing it frame by frame so I can catch this fucker. Fuck, I still missed it. He moves his head too quick. It happens between the frames, but you can see, like, it's literally the smallest sliver of neck.
Yeah, I believe you.
As he backs the Doctor into the corner, and dun dun dun, that's the cliffhanger.
A rather unfortunate cliffhanger for us to end on here.
It's really aged badly. It looks so silly.
Like, the only thing I can think of is kind of like adding some padding at least to make it look less like a human in there.
Yeah, you can really see, like, you know, you can see the guy's stomach, you can see his arms, you can see the tiny bit of his neck there, as I just said.
You can see a bit of his bulge in his crotch as well.
You can see a bit of his dick. Like,
it's very tight on him.
It's not the best looking costume. That it's probably one of the worst I've seen in Classic Who. I'm sure in the time, you know, if you were like 5 or 6 watching it, you would have been pretty scared by it. But, you know, with our modern eyes and stuff like that, it's very silly. And it genuinely was one of the few moments in this story that made me laugh out loud as I was watching it by myself. Like, but
it is interesting to see. It's very fascinating to see how much 50 years have changed television, at least.
Yeah, it's insane. But that brings us to the end of this episode. And the end of the episode of the podcast as well, which I think, calculating it, let's see, that first half was 2.5 hours. This is an hour and a half.
Close to 4 hours.
Put those together. I feel like we're approaching the 4 fucking hour mark.
Yeah, I would say like 3, 4 to 5.
Ooh, hoo, hoo, hoo. Can't say that we don't give you good information on this podcast.
15 minutes of television covered in almost 4 hours. Unbelievable.
Absolutely. I hope it's been an entertaining conversation. I've very much enjoyed it. But Scott, what are your quick thoughts on these 2 episodes of this story?
Aside from maybe the last 2 or 3 minutes, a really solid episode, honestly. It holds up really well, especially the first episode. I would say it's very well directed, very well written for the most part. Especially the first episode again. Like, the first episode is really almost flawless, I would say. But yeah, a very good start to a story. Shame about the cliffhanger, but it is 1971 and Doctor Who, so you can't judge it too harshly. What about you?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I definitely think episode 1 out of these 2 was much stronger. Though, you know, it is like 15 minutes of exposition and setting up the story, but they present it in a unique enough way where it's interesting and you find yourself wanting to listen to what they're saying. And this episode, I definitely think is the weakest out of the 5 in this story, and like, it's a lot of sitting around waiting for shit to happen that doesn't happen until these next 3 episodes that are coming up, which is a bit of a letdown considering the first one's like, okay, we're setting everything up here, we're getting the ball rolling, and then this one's like, okay, let's just sit and wait for 20 minutes. You know, we're just, because we have 5 episodes we need, so we're just gonna wait. But that being said, you know, I still think it's really good. These are my first 2 full episodes I've watched with Jon Pertwee as the Doctor. I gotta say, I do like him. He's very fun. I like the way he presents himself. And being very scientific minded and things like that. And I think it's very interesting and, you know, almost, I hesitate to say the word brave, but I can't think of a better word at the moment. But, you know, in early 70s TV, to present such a mature, well-spoken and, like, understanding of, like, you know, religion's not real, it's all bullshit, but still being respectful at the same time to the people's beliefs and things like that for 70s TV, I think that's really, really clever and well done.
Yeah, and there could have been room for like more debate about religion versus science, but I think that could have been done if the episode was written in 2021, just to have like a full breakdown of religion versus science, that would be quite good. Maybe a big finish audio drama. But yeah, it's really interesting to just see the different ideals come together. Like next week we'll talk about more of this, like between the Doctor and the Brigadier, like even that, where the Brigadier is all about war and the Doctor is all about peace and that kind of relationship. But yeah.
Thank you for listening to this extremely extra long episode of Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast. We will be back next week with part 2, covering the final 3 episodes of this story. So you can fucking betcha it's going to be even longer than this one was. But you can find us on Twitter at Watches Doctor. You can find us on YouTube at Who Watches Who, on Facebook at Who Watches Who. And this podcast is available in audio form anywhere that you can get podcasts. You can find me on Twitter at Cloth223. You can find my YouTube stuff at MessYouTube. YouTube.com/MessYouTube, that is. And Scott?
Be sure to send us any kind of email you want, whether it's comments about this show or Doctor Who, any kind of opinions you've had on the episodes we covered. Send us an email at whowatcheswhopod@gmail.com.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that is the email address.
All our information is in the description, so just don't be shy. Press the see more button and you'll see more.
Woo! But yes, we will be back next week. Same Doctor Who time, same Doctor Who hour. Bye-bye.